that was the realization that he met Rajni in a bar. He came back and started a bar. Now he's extremely successful in life.
Our production designer for the entire series was Basuma Kadug, and he plays the lead in Void. And Pallavi is his daughter. Okay, so we had done a video for a casting call. Okay, this was way before the series started. We had done a casting call video, and for that we needed a girl and a boy. So we asked Basuma sir if his daughter can do it. And when we shot her, when we just set the camera, we knew that she was Pallavi because we had the script by then, and we were seeing this girl just completely, she didn't care that the camera was there. So I think that is how we found her.
He's breaking the bubble of this podcast.
Yeah, पूरा podcast में कि अरे क्या आर्ट बनाया ये वो वैसा कुछ बनाया अरे
అందరికీ నమస్కారం. చిత్ర ఆలోచన పాడ్కాస్ట్కి స్వాగతం. సో దిస్ ఇస్ yet another special episode with special creators. So we have Sumant and Sandeep, the showrunners of Ekam. Welcome, guys.
Hi.
Hello guys, thank you for having us.
Yeah. So to give a brief about Ekam is an independent anthology series that these guys have made. It's a beautiful piece of art, and like the title, Ekam speaks about a lot of things, but a single thing. So I'll reserve my comments after Prithvi says whatever he wants to say. So Prithvi, please go ahead and tell how did you
Right. Right. So actually, the makers of Ekam Journeyman Productions, they approached us and wanted to have a collaboration, and they were looking for collaborations all over Instagram. Whoever are creating stuff related to cinema, somewhere related to cinema, and they were looking for cinephiles so that they would want to take this forward. So this is the briefing for the people who are watching this. So if you have not watched Ekam, please go check out Ekam. As Sandy said, it's an anthology series which has 7 episodes with a prologue, and the whole of Ekam season 1 and bonus content at 10% discount. Use our coupon code CA10 at the checkout. You can find the coupon code and the link in the pinned comment below. And when the makers approached us and wanted to promote this, after we watched, and they were generous enough and kind enough to give us a screener. So we had watched the show earlier, I think a month and a half earlier, and in the meanwhile also had watched it twice or thrice over. And when we sat down to brainstorm ideas to think about a way to promote this, I was thinking a lot about whatever happens in all the 7 episodes. So we'll try to keep this spoiler free for 15-20 minutes, or at least 10 minutes in the initial stages, and then get into the details of whatever the show has. So I was thinking about a one liner as to how I can describe the whole show in my own words, in my own experience. So I thought Ekam has 7 different stories spanning across a huge timeline, set up in a geographical location called Karavali, which of course is in the title, season 1 Karavali. So Karavali is a geographical location. It's the timeline is spans huge, like before pre-independence, or like long before independence, to modern times, and all these in this timeline, all these stories have this identity crisis. So the protagonists or the main characters are either looking for an identity or are having an identity, and uh, or probably want to change it for some reason, or are stuck in an identity that is imposed upon them because of circumstances or because of society that they see around them, or they are put into those situations. And it is a struggle. It is the struggle that the characters are going through, and a story is born out of that, is what I was I conjured up in my head when I was trying to think about what is Ekam. And then the title hit me, that Ekam, the word Ekam, is, if you see in so because we are from Telugu land, if you look up in the Telugu dictionary, Ekam means solitude, and also clubbing together of lot of things. So one and the multitude. So when I read it out, okay, they literally meant the same thing, and I was not looking at it. I was not realizing it until the meaning hit upon me. So it was very deep, philosophical, but at the same time, also kept me entertained with a lot of unexpected comedy, also tragedy at times. But yeah, so that's my monologue for Ekam.
Yeah.
So you've been very kind. Thank you.
So I'll take it up from where he left. So firstly, when I saw the series, I thought, okay, these people, the showrunners at least, would have been at least more or less in their 20s. But I'm actually surprised looking at you guys. Why? Why? Uh,
I, I don't take that as a compliment.
no, no, because
Kidding, kidding. Just go ahead.
so be- why it's because so all of these questions I actually have, like more or less of the identity crisis, right? I wouldn't say I have an identity crisis per se, but I have all of these questions pertaining to identity crisis. What if I am born in a family in coastal Andhra or coastal Karnataka? What if my language is not Telugu and something so I have all of these questions. I think frequently whenever I go on trips, what if my life is, let's say I recently have been to Kodaikanal. So what if I'm actually born in Kodaikanal rather than in Hyderabad? So 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 after watching Ekam, so one line stuck in my head. Uh, not from the series, but it kept repeating in me. So that is so there is this concept in Indian philosophy, right? Daivam Manusha Rupena, which is the divine and the self both are the same. The Atman and the Brahman both are the Brahman, which is the entire cosmos, and the single unit, that is the Atman. Both are the same, so they resonate in the same way. The cosmos resonates in the same way. So this is a very Indian philosophy, right? And when we think about this philosophy in terms of identity, right? So the Atman can be a society, can be a single person, can be a single cell, and all of these actually resonate in the same way. But so all of these are born without any consciousness, but once the consciousness, even the society has a consciousness, right? Consciousness. So once the consciousness enters, everything else is corrupted until you die, right? So I think that is the idea that you guys were going for, uh, where the society also imposes a lot of things. And I think the title design, whatever, it is sort of a single atom, but if you look at the entire prologue, it is sort of, it embodies the entire universe and it comes onto a single atom. um, so I think you were going to that vibrations. And so good thing or bad thing, I don't know if it is a good thing or bad thing, because Ekam touches upon God, but it doesn't really touches upon God. It touches upon how people behave, how humans behave in circumstances that they have been imposed on, or they themselves have delusions in their head. I know this is very high level, but if people who have watched the series come back and listen to whatever I'm saying, so they can relate each part of it to at least one short story. Um and certain people actually try to go and fight the existing societal norms or the conditions they are in. Some do not. Some actually think that is their fate. And all of this we see regularly in our daily lives, right? And why is Ekam important, right? Let's take out God of the out of the equations. And why is Ekam as a series important in this current day society that India is living in? uh, we have a massive identity crisis, is what I would say. When we say Daivam Manusha Rupena, uh, it also means we have to think for ourselves, right? But but our identities are mostly based on uh, region, caste, language, or like my fundamental grouse is we have something called as population dividend, right? Or demographic dividend, as we call it. But our demographic dividend is behind a group identity rather than an individual identity, which Ekam tries to promote. An individual identity, think for yourself, what is good for you, what is bad for you. And so that is, I don't know how many people will take Ekam as that, but that is my takeaway, that have your individual identity, find out what it is. Don't be like Raj B Shetty in the movie. Like if people see it, they'll understand. uh, right? So in that sense, like you cover the entire pantheon. If a person is individual, there is nobody around him. He stays alone in the house. From there to a society, how they kill him. So you cover the entire pantheon, and that is very interesting. I don't know how you guys have panned out entire thing, various moods, etc., etc., to the entire 7-part series. Uh, but yeah, that is my takeaway.
That's very interesting, yeah, Sandy.
Yeah, it's been wonderful hearing the two of you speak. I
Yeah.
just let you guys go on because as makers, somebody just understanding the series to this extent, and so, and also the fact that what you go after. A lot of times we go after something and maybe we only achieve a certain level, and from there on, you as an audience come watch it and take it to another level. So I am absolutely enjoying this conversation. I
Yeah, that
can
is why I said
hear.
maybe we might be extrapolating uh, more than what the makers tend to, which is like our most frequent comment in our comment section, saying that did the director or the makers even mean that? But that is the beauty of art. You take whatever you want from it, and
Yeah,
that is what art is, right?
absolutely.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So so of course, the first question that would come up, because you just complimented us saying that I'm loving hearing you guys speak a lot about what we may or may not have intended. So the core aspect of thinking, brainstorming of any idea or story, and then translating it onto a paper, from brain to the paper or to the desktop, and then from the desktop to a screen. So how has this been with you both being the showrunners, and at times one of you directing as well? So how did that go?
You want to start soon? I can take.
You go ahead, go ahead. I'll join in.
Okay. So, I mean, I'll tell you about how we decided to make a series, or why we decided to make a series, and that will lay context to some of what both of you were, some things about what you guys were talking about, right? So, when Sumant and I decided to make a series, we looked at, this was pre-pandemic, so we looked at the OTTs were just fresh. Few series had just come out, maybe Sacred Games and a bunch of stuff had come out, and we looked at what is the sort of format that was there in the OTTs at the moment. So one layer was that you had all these series that were making dark black characters, black and white characters gray, right? So you had Sacred Games, you had Mirzapur, and a lot of in
Right,
that in that
right,
line of thought. And then there was another line of thought which was almost set in metros and exploring this newfound freedom from censorship. You know, it was just stories based in metros, and it's like we don't
right,
have to worry about censor, so let's go on. Right?
right,
So
right, right.
at that moment, we asked ourselves, hey, is there an opportunity outside of both of these things that we could look at? So that's one thing, one thought that we had. The second thought we had was the place we were living in terms of the country and the world at large, how polarity had become so much more. Discourse between people was becoming so hard. If you disagree, having a conversation was so hard. But at the same time, we as a people were still coming together for festivals, movies, and cricket. None of these differences matter, right? So we asked ourselves, okay, can we do
Right,
something with these two
right.
thoughts, right? So the answer, after a lot of discussions between Sumant and I, ended up in one finding inspiration from Malgudi Days. Okay,
Hmm.
in the sense that Malgudi Days told the story of a fictional space to the entire country, Kannada actors speaking Hindi, and it blew up. The entire country was able to relate with it because it was human stories, right? And
Mhm.
Malgudi almost became a real space in everybody's mind. So we said, okay, what if we, instead of introducing a fictional space, with each season of Ekam, we introduce you to a real place, which meant that real place ka geography, the culture, the languages, everything, right? And if we're able to pack that into a season, so almost like our job was to introduce you to this person, which is a space, because when you think about Hyderabad, or Chennai, or Bombay,
Right,
or
right,
Bangalore, you feel a certain way. Yes, you know this information, but you get a feeling about that place, right? So we wanted to achieve that from a season point of view. And season one, being Karavali made so much sense for us because Sumant had already made 2 short films in Udupi, one of which both of us had worked on. So we said, okay, maybe we can extrapolate from here, you know. So that was
Right.
one thought. The second thought of this, this second point that I made about polarity and at the same time coming together, we asked ourselves, can our curation lend to coming together? Can the curation be pushed in that direction? So that's how, when we were tripping on that, Sumant came up with the word Ekam. After a lot of research, he came up with the word Ekam, and the version of the word that we liked was that, like you guys said, it is not one, but it is where everything comes together as well, right? So it is
Yes,
not
yes,
about
yes.
saying we are the same, not at all. It is saying we are different, we have similarities, we have our differences, but there is a point where we all come together, and that point is what we are trying to indicate, right? So once we got the name, and of course this name had the other advantage that it had the same meaning across all our languages. Okay, so Ekam means the
Yeah,
same
yeah.
in
True.
Malayalam, in Tamil, in Kannada, in so many of these languages, right? So we were really happy with it. But that became, so these two became our pillars. One for a season, introduce the culture, space, and all that, and all the stories have to serve that purpose. From a curation point of view, which meant our logo, our prologue, our music, everything had to lend towards this meaning of Ekam, you know. So this too became the pattern. So if you look at what Sandy was saying a little earlier in terms of
The
uh,
identity crisis.
identity crisis and the parallel between Atma and Paramatma and all of these questions, right? So we drew from a lot of places, but I wouldn't go into all those tricks because I think it'll be a little overload. But I'll come back to where we ended. We ended with this idea, like if you look at our symbol in the prologue, you
Yes,
see
yes,
all
yes.
these layers of almost like threads of glow that are going around, and you see this cosmos in the center, right?
Yes,
Hmm.
yes.
And if you see a 2D symbol, which you'll find on our socials, it's a spiral with an empty void in the center. There are two spirals going around. It's the interpretation of the same thing in 2D and 3D.
It's basically the top view of the.
Of the same
Right.
story.
Right,
Yeah.
right, 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 right.
What are we trying to say? We're essentially saying that each one of us are these layers, these threads. We have our own, cycle that we keep going through, but at some point, you realize that you are one, and that one point can either be a void, the nothing out of which everything comes from, which is what we've shown in the 2D, or the cosmos, which is where everything is there, everything in the world is born there, so
Right.
that, and all it takes is a moment of realization that, and what that moment is not definable for you, me, or anyone, you know so this is what drove the music choice. Like, it's crazy. Mukundan and Jishnu Chatterjee, the way they have, Jishnu Chatterjee, the one who headed the prologue and directed the prologue, his team, and Mukundan, the way they have interpreted this in the prologue is brilliant. Because, of course, we wanted a logo, of course, we wanted a title sequence, but where they took it, after a point, we had to tell Jishnu that, hey, Jishnu, now this is your film. You know, now there's no inputs from us. Now you tell us where it's headed. We just have to align on the direction. Because we set out to make a 30-second film and it became a 2.5-minute trip which has planets and atom and cosmos and everything.
Right. Okay.
It just blew out of proportion, and we were just sitting back and enjoying and saying, "Hi, welcome aboard, director. You're no more."
Right. I
So
th-
if I, sorry, go on.
no, no. I was just commenting on the prologue being the coming together of all you guys. So it's an Ekam of your crew making
Yeah,
the prologue of Ekam.
yeah,
Interesting.
yeah,
Please
yeah.
go on. Yeah.
Yeah, so if you notice in the music as well, the same interpretation exists by Midhu. He has all these different. When you come to the theme part, he's used so many of these instruments which are from all over the world. Okay, but when there's one frequency of the music that is not at the level of the instrument, and none of these instruments, no matter how hard you play, what note you play, it will never match them. So that's his interpretation of the same visual of the cosmos and all the layers you know
Right.
and he's
Right.
done this without us saying anything. He's just, our line to him, I think. Suman, do you remember what our one line brief to him was?
Uh, where the sum of everything is nothing. I think that was the line.
Yeah, where the sum of everything is nothing, and uh, that nothing
That's
that nothing from which everything comes, or something like that.
So that was the only brief Midun had, and with that one line of brief is the music that you hear now. I mean, it was the first draft, and it was the only draft that we did for the theme music.
For the theme music, yeah.
So that's pure
Beautiful.
genius from Midun. That, and this is with no visual reference, nothing. It's with this one line of thought that we give him, and the larger idea of what we are going for with Ekam. So he had that context, plus he had this idea of the sum of everything is nothing, and so this is what he comes up with.
Right.
And even Jishnu, like Sandy was saying earlier, of course this symbol existed, but he didn't want to leave it there. You know, that this layer and the void of the cosmos. He said, no, let's take that to the atom and the universe and everything in between. You know,
Right.
so
Flora and
this,
fauna, yes.
everything he's interpreted. You know, so many life forms and so many things. And at the end of it, you
And
can see that this is just one small world in this universe, and this whole universe is one small universe in many universes. You
Yes,
know?
yes, yes.
and in all that abstractness, there is also this context of Karauli. There is a floating island. I mean, as
Yes.
mythology has it, the Karauli belt was submerged under the ocean for the longest time, and it emerged out of the ocean. So this entire
Okay,
this thing of a
okay.
land emerging from water, which is what we have in the voiceover as well. So there's so much context to Ekam also within this abstractness. So it was incredible from Jishnu to kind of interpret it that way.
Yeah, there's that part where he's saying there are floating islands, there's Karavali, and you can see different floating islands in the back and top and all that.
Yes, yes, yes.
Hopefully, there are
They're the-
cheat codes of saying our wish list for the next season. We've not revealed the places, but that's what we're trying to indicate. No.
Beautiful.
But sorry, maybe we'll come back to this in detail later. But Sandy, what you were mentioning about the common thread of identity crisis that you found is bang on. I
Bang
think is
on.
absolutely bang on, because when we selected Karauli, when we selected this belt, I mean, that is one thing that I think we see, that this place is going through a transformation where the younger lot is moving on to Bangalore for their IT jobs or abroad. So it's a lot of older people who are living here, and the place in itself is it's a potpourri of you have such a culturally rich place. It's a diverse place in terms of food and culture and so many other things, but it is devoid of young people largely. You have people from the villages moving to the towns because there's nobody, so the villages are more or less empty. You have a lot of empty houses. So this entire, in the curation, when we arrived at Udupi, or this entire Karauli belt as the place, the identity crisis also became very, very relevant, because that is what would represent Udupi, or would represent the entire Dakshin Kannada belt for me today. So that was so bang on, because the stories also are kind of falling under that curation, but the place also, because like Sandeep mentioned, the place had to be the character. So, and that question of identity crisis became very relevant for the place also, other than the characters in each of these films. So I'm so glad that you brought it up and you read it that way.
It's incredible. I mean, also I think because you guys brought it up in terms of the ordering change and you guys have noticed it, right? That's also relevant to this point that Sumit is making and Sandy brought up. So the original curation or the ordering. So when we spent a month trying to develop Ekam, we had a set of about 12 to 15 stories, okay, that we had found, and we were considering to become part of the series. And then we chose 7 out of them, and we curated it in a certain order because it had to do the job of the season, which is reflect the personality of the place, right? So the original order is this, and the curation is based on the life cycle of a person. Okay, so the first episode, according to original ordering, is tradition. Okay, and tradition is because it's trying to indicate the idea of that you are born into a certain family in a certain space, right? The 4 of us in this call might speak different languages or eat different food, not because we necessarily made those choices. You were born into the tradition of that family, right? So that's what we're trying to say is the first phase or the first film. Okay, the second film is legacy, where we're saying now you're probably in adolescence and you feel like right from wrong. You've reached that space where you.
Right.
But the question really is it your right or your father's right or your mother's right? That you borrowed. And you'll see that very visibly because the way you treat a woman might be something you learned from your father. Or the way you treat your house help might be something that you saw your parents. So you think you know right, but it's still the right that you have bought,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
And the third phase or the third film in the original ordering is Flight, where it's trying to say it's the phase where we decide to take on the world. We say,
Right.
screw society,
Right.
screw family, I'm going to take on the world and succeed. And we usually do this in life either for career or for love, right? We decide to
Right.
take on everything, and like all of us on this call, I'm sure, right? But right after you realize that you also have to conform, and that's when delusion comes, which is the fourth episode. Okay, in the
Right.
original ordering, where you realize that you also, as a filmmaker, you said, oh, it's all romantic and I'm going to be this filmmaker, and you pursued it, and you realize you also have to make money, you also have to figure out how to make it work, and so on and so forth, right? And you realize you're living in the small bubble, right? So that's delusion. The next phase after delusion is where we're saying that we probably settled down. Like Sandy was
Right.
indicating in this call earlier, that we don't look as young.
Yeah.
Young as we
You
thought we were.
All right.
Uh, so Masquerade is where you're probably,
Right. Masquerade.
maybe you're settled down in life and you maybe have a family, but you need to go out into the real world, and exist and make your living. And that's when you realize
Right.
everyone around you has their own agenda. There is no truth anymore. Everyone's wearing a mask.
Right.
And you need to play that game and figure out, or you'll have Raj's uh, situation to deal with, right? So after Masquerade is when we're saying you reach a phase in life, because till now you've only been playing roles in tradition, in that phase, in legacy. You're only playing these different roles that life gave you. But at one point, the play moves beyond you. Life moves beyond you, and you suddenly become irrelevant. You see this in your own families. You see this in your own houses, where people suddenly feel empty because life doesn't need their role anymore. This can happen at a
Correct.
society level, it can happen at a family level, it can happen at a personal level. Right? And out of that void or emptiness, you might, for the first time in your life, for most people, it might be at the very fag end of their life, you question your identity. Because your no role is forced on you anymore, you might ask yourself, who are you? Right? Who am I? Right? So this whole curation, while it is for the life cycle of a person, for us, this person is Kara.
Right.
Right? Because like Sumant indicated earlier, the idea was, who is Karavli? Because on one end you have Karavli, which is so rich in geography, like geography, culture, food, performance art, so much culture. It's rich, it's amazing. Like you go 5 kilometers in this direction, you have a forest, you have a hill, you have a waterfall. 10 kilometers in that direction, you have a beach and a river, and everything else in between,
Right.
right? So this is on one side, but on the other side, like Suman said, so many spaces in Karavli, like Manipal and all of the places, have these huge houses and so much land. They are either empty of people, there's no person there, or only old people living. So depending on the economic class, the youth have migrated either to Bangalore, Bombay, or Dubai, in search of opportunity. So the question we really had to pose was, who is Karavli then? Or rather, who is Karavli going to choose as an actor? Is it this or is it that? Right? So
Right.
this is
Beautiful.
the original intended ordering. Now,
Right.
so I'd let Suman tell you why we changed the ordering for the final release.
No, they would have realized by now, because the first ordering that you say, you start with tradition, and you know that tradition can be a very difficult film to absorb. Also, you need to give it some time. So we thought, yeah, ye risk though we should not take
Yeah.
of
Right. Right.
kind of putting people off in the first episode, saying this is too much. I'm not going to come back for this. So I mean, we have always had that discussion, but only closer to release did it start getting real. Ki, yaar, are we taking too much of a chance? Because we have taken chances with everything that we've done with Ekam. We've gone against the tide in a lot of things, but maybe also we should be a little considerate of the audience. Also, kind of slowly gear them up for what is to come for later. Because everything said and done, we always knew that this is not a binge material. You can't watch
Yes.
7 episodes back to back.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
True.
each episode takes its own time. It has a very different
Tone.
taste and aftertaste, and you need to give the audience that chance also to kind of completely consume the film. So which is why kind of we went with the reordering.
Right.
Yes.
Did you have any kind of feedback that got you, and then you thought about, okay, we should considered reordering it, or is it
We
No,
from
I think
your?
we
Okay,
have always been considering among ourselves, and we knew that tradition is a very very risky bet to start with.
right.
But yeah,
Okay,
Sandeep, you're saying something?
No, I think we've
Yeah,
considered reordering at least over the past 1 year we've had this conversation ten
yeah,
times, and all 10 times we said no. You know, we
okay,
can't. But
right.
I believe it or not, I think some 5 days before release we were like, should we give it one last shot? And we gave it one last shot, and we found an ordering, and we're like, yeah, it seems like this has a good start, has a good end. People will have a flow. It seems like it's easier for them to we're not making it hard. So we thought, okay, let's give it a shot and see what happens. So we just
right.
reordered it because we were like, the curation or the life cycle and all these layers are always secondary, tertiary layers that we're hoping that you know, which is why it's incredible that both of you have brought this up and you laid it in front of us, because for us, this is not something we are making obvious, right? None
Yeah,
of these things we are making obvious. It's only for the second read or the third read or for you to enjoy, So for us,
yeah,
ultimately, when we reordered it, we were like, for those people, I think they will still find it. They will still figure this out. So I think we will do fine with the reorder. Is what we
Right,
thought.
So I think
right.
both of us had a conversation like after watching it the second time when the order was changed, and like after watching the first time, the girl's story is my favorite. Why? Because it is. I mean, it's not to put you off, but it is the most heartwarming story in the entire series. And you see the girl coming out of coming out with flying colors, right? And it has a I mean, I don't know how casting was done, but that girl, whoever has acted, I don't know her
Pallavi
name, but
Pudugu.
yes. So
yeah. I think
she
yeah,
has a charm on her face when she smiles. So that resonated very well with me, and she has the charm translated. So for me, that was the best episode. And when I spoke to Prithvi, he was also of the same opinion. So I thought, okay, when reordering was done, they wanted the people to go in smoothly into the series, and then the stuff
right.
the hard hitting stuff comes up, because
Yeah,
as you said, right, tradition, I took my time to okay, I did not understand initially, okay, they're actually going to kill him for an honor, and then okay, these guys are doing some very serious stuff, and then I took it very seriously. But yeah.
yeah. Do you want to give a spoiler alert if you're going
Y-
into the spoiler zone
Yeah, I think we
for
should.
the
Yeah,
audience?
I was just thinking about that. Yeah,
No, but yeah,
yeah,
coming back to Sandy, what you're saying,
please
I
go on.
think
Yeah,
we Pallavi is incredible in the film, and I think also we are very fortunate to find her because she was able to completely understand and live that character through and through. I think uh, our production designer for the entire series was Basuma Kadug, and he plays the lead in Void. And Pallavi is his daughter. Okay, so well, we had done a video for
okay,
a casting call. Okay, this was way before the series started. We had done a casting call video, and for that we needed a girl and a boy. So we asked Basuma sir if his daughter can do it. And when we shot her, when we just set the camera, we knew that she was Pallavi because we had the script by then, and we were seeing this girl just completely, she didn't care that the camera was there. So I think that is how we
right.
found her.
That was the exact line I was thinking about. Uh, the person who plays the lead in Void. When you were describing his daughter
Mm,
playing and not caring about the camera, I was thinking
mm,
about how this person acted in Void.
yeah,
He was literally owning the space in wherever he was with the gun or with beside the scarecrow or doing his
yeah,
thing when he's thinking about the boar or the steps, like the
right,
psychoanalytical stuff that he does
yeah,
in when
yeah,
he's in his zone. So
I think
great find. I mean, like great find.
I think the
Casting is
entire
honestly like
casting, yeah,
fantastic.
entire casting is like that. You can, I think, the entire casting and all of the performances were very good.
yeah.
True.
I think also it boils down to because these people, the entire cast, almost most of them, I'd say 90-95% are from this belt.
Mm.
So,
Yeah.
so they knew
Right,
exactly
right,
what they're
right,
going
right,
after, and that puts them in a comfort zone because they are more or less playing themselves. So I think that being the
right,
biggest challenge that they're not having to play another character. They're just being themselves. All of these guys, Pallavi is being Pallavi as
Right,
Manjula,
right,
or
right.
somebody
right.
else is just being the characters.
Right.
So it's
Right.
maybe for Pallavi also, because living in this, there's so many things that she wanted to say but couldn't say. Maybe she has said it through this film. I don't know. I'm saying because it becomes so. After a point, you see that she is that character.
Right. 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 Right.
True.
Right. Right.
True. True.
But
And
I think
by the way,
there is
mm,
something in the belt
Yeah,
of Tulu, like the Shetty brothers, who has
yeah,
revived
yeah.
the Kannada cinema, and then you guys. Yeah, I think.
Yeah, they are
yeah,
leading the way absolutely, without a doubt,
Yeah.
with whatever they're doing.
Yeah.
yeah.
So
I mean, it's great thing because Paramba backing you guys up, and playing their part in promoting Ekam, and like, so it's a great thing. And uh, so, and I was thinking about that thing that you do in flight. So voiceover is not a voiceover, but it's subtitle on the
yeah.
screen. That's, I mean, when I saw that, I was floored. I mean, it was very ingenious, is what I thought, because you keep hearing voiceovers in a lot of films, and and after a point it gets to you. But this was very fresh, and it actually serves a great purpose throughout the story. So whose idea was that? And
But did you ever thought having not having subtitles and just leaving it to the interpretation? Like, did that thought cross your
yeah,
mind initially, or was that way
No,
too
I think
risky?
that thought never crossed.
Okay.
That thought never crossed. But because it becomes very crucial that the her mind thoughts are what defines her character.
Correct. Correct.
The mind thoughts are what
yes,
makes her very different from her friend Sharada.
Hmm, hmm, hmm.
Because you see
yeah,
that quirk, you see that resilience, you see that anger and everything in her mind voice, in the subtitles that you read. So that is why
true,
maybe you
true,
also root for her to win. So without
right,
that, she become, because you are assuming a version of Manjula in your head.
Correct.
You are painting that Manjula. Whereas here, there's nothing that you are going to paint. She is the Manjula, and you kind of start accepting her and rooting for her.
Right.
Because the entire film is really her world.
Yeah.
You get a view of this, almost like you're
Hmm.
almost her alter ego. You're almost there in this close quarter watching the entire film. Because even
right.
if you watch the small 2D animation before the film,
Hmm. Hmm,
she's
hmm.
in this flower above the bus stand.
Yes, yes, yes.
She's not in.
Flying out.
Yeah, there is no reality. Her world is her world. The reality does not matter. It's her
Right,
interpretation, and we are getting a view to that interpretation through the subtitle. Serves as that
right.
bridge for us.
Yeah, but I mean, so does every other story. Not other stories in Ekam, but every other story, right? It is always uh, again, that is why the title plays so the title fits in so interestingly. It is Ekam, but it is also different, right?
Right.
Uh,
Sure.
yeah. So I was reading something earlier, which talks about a philosophy in Jainism called Anekantvad, which has which is basically saying there is no one truth, but there are many truths. To put it very briefly, and even that also has Anekant. It also has Ekam embedded
Yeah.
to it. But when I was seeing, I did not actually think of it as
So
her world. I know, obviously, it was her world, but uh, so the nosy uncle was nosy uncle, because probably I have seen nosy uncles in my life. Maybe that is why
Yeah.
I did not think, okay, it is nosy uncle in her head. But nosy uncle was nosy uncle. He is a very traditionalist. He wants even though a dead body was laying in some direction, he wanted it to be in some direction, etc., etc., right? uh,
Yeah.
yeah, but I always used to think, why was this fisherman so important? Sorry, fish, the guy who sells the fish on the road, right? But now I get it, because she doesn't like fish, so that is why uh, the fisherman who is traveling is so important in the film right now. Yeah, it makes sense now. I actually wrote it down also. Why is fisherman why is fisherman there in the story?
Yeah. When when I had first watched Flight, I thought, I mean, because it is like, it's not that hard on you, and it's very heartwarming, the whatever happens at the end. I thought this was the most commercial story that was that that Ekam season one has,
Yeah.
and people whoever watches it would eat it up very well, because, and
We even had
especially
a song and dance. So as
Exactly.
commercial,
So of course, so the song actually it's
yeah,
quite great, great song, great choreography, and also she does beautifully like throughout the song and the act as well. So I thought it was such a great addition to stories of Ekam. But uh, and when you were mentioning that in flight we get into her POV and she's talking to the screen in some sort. So at some point she breaks fourth wall, right? At one or two instances she looks at the camera and says smoking kills, something like that, and
yeah,
also
yeah.
one or two lines, yeah. So it was quite quirky and it was very fresh, the whole story of flight, yeah. And when I look at uh, the I mean the order right now, it feels like it is going from slightly grayish or like whitish zone, and then as we move one episode further, the amount of grayness that Ekam would the episode would leave you with is increasing, going towards a darker zone. And tradition is like very dark, very hard to digest. But then you place identity at the very end, because of course you wanted to have identity crisis as the whole takeaway, uh, and the initial thought that went behind making Karavali season 1. So having identity at the very end, and then the way identity unfolds, the story unfolds, it was very interesting for me as well, because it's very meta. It's you guys writing a writer who is thinking about writing, and also about stories that he may have written, may not have written. And then there is a real life incident that happens, he thinks of, which is very embarrassing to him. But then when you cut to the woman that comes to his kitchen at the very end, it's literally the same person that ha- happens to be in that story. So it is the amalgamation of the logo, the 3D logo that you go for in the prologue, is actually, I think, very beautifully personified in identity, is what I thought, because he literally meets his other self, a story that is unwritten but would write again. So again, I can go on forever, because it's like Ekam. That's the stream goes on. So it's interesting, very interesting.
No, but it's also very gloomy to think about old age like that. Uh, so right. So like every decision or every mistake that you have done is coming back to you, and you're not able to identify if it is real or if it is not, because he's staying alone, and the writer has become so delusional in his life that he's not able to distinguish his mistakes from whatever he's living right now. And so that is a bad place to be in for any individual, I would say,
Yeah,
right?
so
For
I
any.
think
Yeah.
the interpretation of that, I think the interpretation of that is slightly different, but I think I would let Ankur have that discussion with you, and you guys have that discussion with him. He'll have a lot to say about it. But
Okay.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Right, right.
Yeah. Yeah, but when I was seeing
Mm.
identity, that is the thought that I had. Key, like as you said, right? Like in your old age, also you'll have this key. Okay, I'm not of your use, which we see in Void more or less. But if that goes to extreme, then you start questioning whatever you have done, good or bad, right? And that is a place that you do not want to be. I think that is why. Uh, uh, so there is this, I don't know if you guys know, but there is four stages of life in Indian philosophy, right? Brahmacharya, Grihastha, last one is sannyasa, and there is this something called
Van,
vanaprastha, where
Vanaprastha
the
and
vanaprastha
Marvelous.
phase is where
yeah,
you try to
yeah. Go on, go on, go on, go on.
was there an okay, so
No, no, we can hear
vanaprastha
No,
you.
no,
is a
no. Go
phase
on, go
where
on.
you
No,
try
no, go
to
on.
move away from. I think my net is a problem.
We can see you now.
Hello,
Okay.
hello. Yeah, yeah. Sandy, go on,
Yeah,
go
yeah.
on. It's clear. Go on.
Yeah, so after grihastha is where you get married, you have kids. Vanaprastha is a phase where you get done with your responsibilities and slowly start moving away from your families, add detachment to your life. And sannyasa is where you completely move away. So I think that is a better life than having than than the old guy in Identity, questioning your entire existence. uh, have your
No,
materialistic needs
okay.
done,
But then,
and yeah,
yeah,
go
but
ahead.
then I think it also leaves you with a lot of hope, no? With how Identity ends,
Yeah,
there's
Yes,
I
acceptance to who he is, and
correct,
kind of,
correct,
yeah.
correct. So I think that
See,
is
there are
what.
two layers. See, there are two layers at play over there. One is that this guy, I don't know if you notice, he's actually a teacher. So when the guy
Right.
walks in, he says, "No class today." So he's in reality some sort of a teacher,
Hmm.
okay, and he conducts class, right? That's his reality. But the question, if you notice the animated intro, is he's actually a writer, but an undiscovered one.
Correct.
Okay, so he's a guy who exists to the world as a teacher, but in reality, he's a writer. And this is also to just give you a tidbit: the guy who wrote the story is also the same. To the world, nobody knows him. He's a tuition teacher to the world, but in reality, he's
okay.
written three of his stories are part of Ekam, and he has so many undiscovered stories that I think can fill so many filmmakers' lives. Okay,
Oh,
and
wow.
and that teacher happens to be Sandeep's physics teacher also.
he's my
So
physics teacher.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so this is literally almost him, right? So that's
Right.
one layer. The second layer is all these characters that you see, there are clues laid out, you know. So when this person comes and when he's leaving, he says, you either send me to Dubai or you send me to Chenda class. Okay,
Hmm.
so you see that the person next door was a guy who went to Dubai and came back and has forgotten his own language. He's not able to read Kannada to his daughter,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah, that's
You see
great
the
to see.
guys
Yeah.
sitting outside playing chenda. You see this lady plucking flowers. All of these are stories, that he's written and
Right.
finished.
Right.
So, which is why he's saying, "You send me to Dubai or do something. Give me a story," because he's basically an idea that he had and never pursued. So an idea that you have and never pursue for 10 years, 20 years, it's neither dead nor alive, right? Which is
Hmm.
what this guy is. You know.
Right.
So this whole world that you see is an interpretation of his brain, maybe,
Correct.
where,
Correct.
because if you think of it when you're writing, if you guys are writing or trying to think of something, it's always a mix between your imagination and your memories, and they start
Correct. Correct.
becoming fluid, which is what's happening in this film. A lot of it is his memories, but there are also his imagination, and they
Hmm.
start merging, you know. So that's the space that we're trying to explore. But I'm sure Ankur will be able to lay a lot more context tomorrow. I mean, whenever you guys speak to him.
Sh- Sure. Right. Yeah. I mean, yeah, very well explained. Because I was just thinking about how the story unfolds, and because it's a writer, and it's literally his idea coming and speaking to him in his own younger self. So, uh, yeah, quite quite interesting. And so, going to Void, when I first watched that, and I think in the earlier order, Void was the last, right? Of course, when you
no, it was just before Identity.
just before ended, right? Okay, yeah, right. So when I had watched it, the constant line that was hitting me was this modernity versus nature, and like, so the man is not able to like, he ends up not able to accept or not able to handle man-made things because he's very much in tune with the nature that he's born into, and he does not see that there is a caste and class difference that is being imposed upon him when he's going to meet his ayah, or however he addresses that person. But his son, who is clearly well dressed, wears a helmet, is riding a bike, and is winces at his father even addressing that person as ayah, or like some great person. I have to go meet him immediately. So that difference between the generations, and also the nature versus modernity was what I was able to read. So can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, I think definitely yes. I mean, these are the obvious layers also, like nature versus modernity, and in context of what the transformation that Karaul is going through also, like I said last time. So these are the obvious layers, but I think there is also this thing of losing yourself,
Correct.
in the where you're also you have a persona of your own, kind of, but you're forced into it through society, through your own family, friends, to conform to something that you're not. It could
Right.
here
Right.
in the form of gun, in the form of being ridiculed, that you're not worthy of a gun. So him wanting to prove people wrong and all that, no, in that, uh, so in the attempt of being somebody else, he loses his true self. He ends up being somebody he was not. And how
Right.
you lose
Right.
everything that was valuable to you and everything that was so precious to you. You lose, and you become something that you wanted to, but that has come at a cost, where you have nothing that was so dear to you with you anymore.
And
So that was the larger idea we are going after also.
and more often,
Sorry,
Right.
the person who is in that state doesn't even realize that he is losing himself, which is
you don't,
and which
yeah,
is shown in the film as well,
you
where he
yeah,
only
yeah, yeah,
I don't know, like, it is not shown, the ending is very open, but he commits a murder, is what, or
yeah.
he actually hunts, we don't know, because that is left open, but only then he
Okay,
probably
I thought
realizes.
I thought it is open, but
Yeah, I thought even I'm saying it might be open. He could have actually killed a boar,
yeah,
a wild boar, or someone else, which I don't want to say. Uh,
right,
uh, but it is open, right? In that sense, he might. So there are again two parts from there. He might actually
yes,
confirm the wrong identity that he's in. Okay, no, I'm actually a great hunter, or he might actually realize, oh, what the fuck have I done? I was fooling myself all along,
right,
and I have committed a great sin because of that. But we do not know. There are two paths, and the person can go on either
right,
ways, right? And I think
right.
that
That's a different journey from that point on.
correct,
Right,
correct. And that thing, I think, most crucial, most subtle moments, we don't even understand. Life throws at you. You don't even understand what you are, but you, without, like you said, with societal pressures or something, you take that path,
right.
like, without you knowing
Yeah,
about
it's
it.
always in hindsight that you realize,
Correct, correct.
because
Exactly.
when I'm looking at Gurua doing that, no, he's like, yeah, I've got a gun, I've got all the gifts that a hunter needs to have. So it's only about time I hunt.
Mm-hmm.
So the first day goes, second day goes, third day goes, fourth day goes, and then at some point you start doubting yourself, saying, was I really that good, or was that a fluke, and all that. So
Correct,
you start undervaluing everything that you had,
correct,
and which you never bothered to question even once before the gun kicked in.
correct,
You
Right.
were a gifted
Right.
hunter and people looked up to you, but that didn't mean a great deal to you,
correct,
because you didn't live for that. You didn't live for the accolades. You lived because you enjoyed going to the forest, sleeping, and just for fun, catching something and coming home.
correct.
But the moment you are made aware that you're only great if you do it with a gun,
Hmm. Hmm.
so that is when his mind is also corrupted. So
Correct.
that is when the more he tries, the more further he gets from his own self.
Yeah, yeah. We are also seeing that forgets his gods. Like, after every hunt, he actually
Exactly.
refers,
Exactly.
which is very
Yeah,
important, right?
that's
Because
yeah,
he
but
initially also he says that you have to
correct.
respect nature, and that is, the god is the
Correct.
nature.
For him, his God is, yeah, exactly. So that being the larger idea also, him being one with nature. That's how the film opens up also, no?
Correct,
Where
correct,
he's just taking a nap in the forest, in the
correct,
initial
Yes.
montages,
Yes.
where he's one with nature. You can't tell nature from him or him from
correct,
nature.
correct, correct, correct.
So from
True.
there to just thinking that he has everything that he can, I mean, in his ammunition, that he can go and hunt. Whereas forgetting that he just needs to be very, very aware that he can do it any day. But he
Hmm.
just has to be very aware and very one with nature to do that.
Correct.
So that one quality that defined Gurua, I mean, he's gone so farther away from that, in
And
Right.
wanting to confirm and wanting to kind of prove to people that he's equal.
I think modernity does that to everyone. Like, cities does that.
Yeah. Whereas, right, exactly. Whereas you were always here,
Hmm.
where you thought people were here, you were here, but
Hmm.
in trying to be equal, he's just got himself down.
Hmm.
That is what the society forced upon him also. The perception of him that the society has. He does not realize that he's invaluable.
Right. It sounds very difficult for a person, like, me, who was brought up in a city, to understand that, because for me, everything from, so if I go to something called as New York or a California, probably I would see that culture shift. But the movie beautifully translates all of this, right? With just gun being this thing. So for me,
Right.
at least personally, I constantly keep telling Prithvi. So whenever we travel, I tell Prithvi that why are we like this? Why are we in a race always whenever we are at home? But we are used to
Absolutely.
being in race so often that probably after a week or 10 days we just get bored of not being in that race, and we want to be back in that race, right? so so we just can't sit down, probably read a book or watch a movie, just sit down or just watch trees and write something. Or again, see, even when I'm saying, I'm just thinking about of the things wanting to do, and rather than just staying there, right? See, that is how our brains are tuned when we are in cities, and we don't
Right.
even realize
Right.
how, like let's take Guruvayur, right? Sorry, the person, right? His only aim
Gurva.
is Guruva, so his only aim is to actually
Yeah.
catch food and live, right? If
For that day.
That's it. That's
for
it.
that day,
Yeah.
right?
That's it.
It's
Yeah.
very simple, life is very simple, but for us it's not like that, right? So once you
Yeah.
you have agriculture, etc., 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 so you want status, you want money, you want a good chair, you want a good earphone, and,
Yeah.
and everything else follows from there. So life
Right.
becomes
Yeah.
So
difficult
Gurva doesn't see a point in his son plastering the house
correct.
in the opening stretch, because why plaster? We have a house where it is functional. You can sleep here, you can eat here, you can live. That is all that matters to him.
Correct.
So he's that pure in the essence of what Gurva stands for. No,
Hmm.
he's like that simple.
Correct.
True, and in that scene only, the conversation that he has with his wife, opposed to the conversation they are having while
Yeah.
plastering. I
Right.
think they're
Right.
talking about some sort of
Yeah.
game or something,
Yeah. They're all
something that
talking
is
about a
not there.
cricket match
Right,
that they lost.
right,
Yeah.
right. So the conversation, it's also reflects the same thing. So this person is okay with whatever he had hunted for that day,
Right.
but he gives it away to someone else, takes money, buys fish, comes back,
Yeah.
and then eats that for the day, and
Right.
that's done. So that's his day for that day, because and then goes back to put up traps for trapping whatever he's going to hunt,
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
has a nap naturally, like just like that, on a log of wood beside a
Yeah.
tree, beside a rock, and then goes back to his work again. So he's very in tune with that. And whatever to whatever things Andy was saying, I think that hamster in a cart, right, cartwheel. So
Right. Right. Yeah.
you keep running and running in a pursuit to get that small breadcrumbs that you get once in a while, which is again called dopamine in our today's uh, social media world.
Yeah.
So
Hmm.
I think,
Hmm.
yeah, it's very sad that way. And even it's uh, we are so tuned and so what is it, conditioned to think that to take a day off, like to just rest and do nothing in that day, to be
Yeah.
non-productive in that day, in itself sounds like a sin for
Right.
a modern day metropolitan guy or girl, to think that okay, I have not done nothing today, and you will be filled up with guilt. I mean, like, I'm speaking from experience. I think i
Yeah.
i had gone through this, like why why are you feeling guilt for not doing anything? It's okay to not do anything. It's like one day in your entire life.
You
And
know, just to give, I mean, from the context that you and Sandy were talking about in terms of the rhythm and pace of life that we do. So, Suman, correct me if I'm wrong, but the entire team had moved to Udupi, Manipal, and like the entire crew 3 months before shoot. Okay, so all of
Right.
us were living there. So when you live there, I mean, I'm born and brought up in Bangalore, so living in Manipal, the thing is, you can go to the store, a supermarket over there, and you can ask for things, and you. But the thing is, everything is so laid back. There is no hurry. Like in Bangalore, you go to a supermarket, it's like tap 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 tap. Billing counter guy is going, and then if he's not there, the other guy. This. You ask for something, they'll take their time. They'll be having a conversation with someone else saying, "How come you are late today? You didn't take milk yesterday. You want milk today." They'll finish that conversation, then come to you. One. Second, if there's a festival or a game or whatever, the supermarket is closed.
exactly.
The
They're all closed saying, yeah, ask the
the
festival,
entire town
just
sleeps
shuts
at
down.
7:30. Yeah.
Yeah,
The
7
shops
o'clock.
are closed by 7:30.
right? And if there's a festival, they close down because they're like, why should I work during festival? Like
Correct.
this idea, okay, these that grocery shop should be open 7. No, they don't have open. Like when I want to, I will go. You
Hmm.
know, when something important to me is happening, I will go. And if you're in a rush, you're in a rush. Yeah, why should I be in a rush? You know.
Right.
So there are. So the first few weeks, we all were like, yeah, why is everything so slow? but the, but the reality is you realize that they are making it how it's supposed to be. They're not like unnecessarily rushing things over. They're living life one moment at a time and finishing that conversation, and you can't wait because you only want a coconut or a lemon. It's not going to like
Hmm.
make or break your life if you don't get it in 10 minutes. So I think that's also somewhere, I don't know if this, I would nowhere claim that this is a conscious decision, but even the rhythm of our episodes,
Mhm.
like for a lot of people, is not what they're used to. That's one thing that a lot of people say that, the rhythm is may not be to your liking, but I think it's reflective of the place,
Of the
you
place,
know,
absolutely. Yeah.
you know, so
True. Uh, as you were saying that, I was thinking about this English word. I mean, like it's called sonder. Uh, so what does that mean? Is sonder is to realize that. So say if you say you're walking on a street and you see some person just walking right past you, but sonder is that realization that even that person is actually a real person going through life just like you, with his own or with their own problems, with their own misgivings, their own fortunate things, advantages, disadvantages, going through life, just crossing you. But because you keep living in that shell that you are the center of the universe, you are the main character in your story, and everyone is the side characters in your story. They do exist there just for your to serve your purpose. Is the usual notion, right? I mean, at least whatever. So and then when that breaks, and when you realize that it's someone came up with this word and made this up. It's on dictionary. I read it a few years ago. So it, and whenever I keep hearing people talk like this, or like come across shows like Ekam or in some TV show or some song, I think about this word and try to realize or try to ground myself, because I think this is a good segue to delusion, right? Because in delusion, the bubble breaks in for her, and it's the bubble breaks at the very end. I mean, she thinks that it is breaking at the beginning, when the whatever the test goes wrong, but the bubble actually breaks at the end, and we are left with only the titles. But you have to think about what's she going through, what, because she's in the delusion that, okay, this is not my true identity. These are not my true parents. I need to go somewhere else, or I need to kill myself, or whatever. But to be given all that, to be loved, to be fed every day, and even if she's fed every day, she's so I mean, of course, she's just a girl, but she doesn't eat. I mean, like, whatever is put in
Right.
her box, she doesn't eat, and she's like constantly not paying attention to her timetable. She's just talking to her friend randomly. She's envious about her friend getting gifts and she not receiving any, whatever. Being a kid, but for her to give this reality check is what like makes things come out of the bubble, snap out, and see reality as is like grounded. Okay, ye dekho.
Or again, even that is open, right? We don't know actually if the bubble bursts or not for her. uh,
But it's a grave
I
realization for the other for her friend, right? Like she
Yeah.
literally had lost her
no, it is,
father.
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
is, but so but she, so again, like the father is not present. We aren't shown about the existence of father, at least physically, in the movie, right? So but again, she keeps on blaming her mother for whatever has happened. She sees her mother as her big villain, who was the a rot in her society or whatever. But in her world, society is a big word there. But um, I think I think all of us are like that, right? We conform to certain delusions and we hold them very
Yeah.
dear to us. And most of the times they won't be broken, and we lead our lives like that. Let's say, let's assume me being a good man. If that is a delusion or assumption that I'm living in, most people actually do live like that, and it is not bad. But at some point it can break. Let's say you have there is an accident and the other guy gets hurt or something like that, right? And that breaks, and I don't know how people will take it then. So that is why, at least my assumption is, I am the most bad person that I know, so that is how I operate in general also. So again, like, but there are a lot of delusions. I think that is very important for a person to exist, is what I feel. Otherwise, this constant, you can't keep breaking the bubbles. You can't live in that thought process that, okay, am I doing it correctly, or am I? Otherwise, I don't think you can live or you can earn money. You'll just keep be in that loop in your head. Ki, what am I doing? What am I doing? What am I doing? So, yeah. Okay, I
I
went on
have
a
to tell you
tangent, but
this.
As-
yeah.
Both of your trips are like giving me so much joy.
yeah,
Like I'm not able to contain my laughter because I'm
yeah,
just like so blissed out with both your trips, because it almost feels like four of us are jamming before Ekam.
yeah,
See, that is what
Because
I
these
wanted to
were our
say.
conversations.
That
yeah.
is what I
Yeah,
wanted
this
to
is how
say.
our conversations were. Yeah,
You
this
know,
is
Mm,
how our conversations were before the film. And to
yeah,
see somebody else resonate mm, with it to such minute detail is, I mean, and because Delusion was done what, 4 years back, 5 years back,
yeah.
Wow.
oh.
and to see
Right.
somebody talk about it in such detail, and this conversation almost feels like deja vu. It feels like we are in this room in Udupi where we were having this just before the day of the shoot.
So I think
Yeah,
that is the translation is very real, and that is when you know that you made good art, right?
and it's the funny part is it's never ending. Like for example, when Prithvi was talking about Sonda, Sonda is the word.
Sonder.
Sonder,
Yeah.
Sonder.
I was talking about Sonda, I couldn't contain myself. But I was like, Sumant and I have gone from one bubble to the next bubble to the next. We are constantly living in a delusion. Because I tell you, when we made the series, our delusion was we'll make it and OTTs will come, lay a red carpet.
We just have to choose which OTT. That was where we were. We had to choose which
you know,
OTT.
then that bubble broke. You know? So constant, I think that's the human condition. That I think that's the human condition because I think more than I think there's a layer to this delusion. The layer is also perspective.
Yeah.
That you can only see things from your perspective, and the moment you see the other perspective, you feel so like suddenly your world has changed. Your view of the and not just of that point, but your worldview changes. It just breaks. Like
Right, right.
and it's happened in so many layers for Sumant and I, because I think when Sumant and I started with Ekam, both of us, I mean, I don't know how much we can talk about this, but both of us were, non-spiritual in any sense when we started, to some extent. And by the end of it, not that we became entirely spiritual, but at least I think we transformed into a space of, okay, it's seeming very difficult to deny it. We had
Right.
had so many experiences that now it seemed like we had to engage with it. We had to have discourse with it, so many bubbles. And because yes, we're making a film, but we're also becoming older in the process.
Yeah.
we're also experiencing life in that process. So it's incredible what
I,
you guys are tripping on and saying.
and
Yeah,
I think you touched upon a very good note in Delusion itself, where the grandmother is writing Sri Rama, Sri Rama, Sri Rama Jai, on the book,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Which is called Ramakoti in
Yeah.
Telugu. I don't know if it's called the same thing
Yeah.
there.
Yeah. Yeah. It's that. It's that. Yeah.
And for people who are actually, I think I spoke about it in our earlier Kalki episode also. For people to come out of delusion, God is a very easy, or I wouldn't call it easy, but a necessary tool, right? Uh, if you put your faith in something called as God, it is easier than battling it out in your head, where you are saying, okay, is this correct or is this wrong? Is this correct? So I think the insertion of the grandmother's character and uh, her faith in God makes much like it enriches that particular episode, is what I would say, right? So that is why in the starting I said ki, like, you don't touch upon God, but also you touch upon the importance of God. And I think this land, at least India, is where we debated God a lot. I think that is why we have so many textbooks or scriptures where we can't decide which one is actually correct, or what to follow, right? So the idea of God is very interesting for a human being, at least. I think that we see. And I think one more place where we touch upon God is tradition, but okay, I'll come back to that
Of
later.
in tradition we do it slightly, and in masquerade when it opens up with him praying, and of
Hmm.
course in void he's being in tune with the nature, so he's praying to a rock there. So there also we touch upon God. And the point about the grandmom is I mean, I think I heard somewhere, or I don't know where I heard this. After a point, I think in this conversation also we were talking about how our the person's work or task to society is forfeited, and at so after 60 or 65 they become frail, they become old, they can't do things. And then they're not given tasks in home to do anything, to cook or anything like that. So there is no usage, much usage for them. They're only resorted to, they're telling bedtime stories to their grandkids, something like that. And so then that's so rest of the time they move towards, say let's say God,
Yeah, yeah,
or
yeah,
watching bhakti channels on TV, or listening to pravachanas 24/7. So that is their calling. They think that is their calling, so they move to that. So that is touched upon here, of course. So that was nice. And when I rewatched was rewatching Delusion again, the delusion is not only resorted to the kid. Even this woman is delusional, thinking that the professor told something else,
Hmm.
and
yeah,
she assumed something else. So she
yeah.
was delusional there. Why? Because Karavali sends the train at that point through that place, and she's not able to listen to that in the word. And is what that's what I read. Because when you end the scene, right? It's a wide shot with the tree, her, and the train is going past.
Yeah,
You end with the train sound. The train sound moves into the titles as well. So I
yeah.
thought the train is very important there, because if that is not there, she would have probably she would have heard the right word, the what the professor was trying to ask. So
Right, you're right. I mean,
Um,
because Sandy has brought up this idea of God and whether we were trying to interpret it and all that, right? So, I mean, I don't think we have necessarily tried to interpret God through Ekam, but this idea of Advaita
hmm.
or Ekam, or that we are not two and all that, is what we try to interpret. And one interesting thing is, I don't know if you notice the name of the narrator in our prologue. So if you notice in the subtitle, it calls him the fourth one.
the fourth one,
Okay,
yeah, I wanted to ask actually, but yeah.
and the idea there is basically he opens with the question of who am I. So in philosophy, in Indian philosophy, the answer to who am I, they say there are three answers. One is, are you the one who's experiencing the wakeful state, which is when you're awake like this, like us right now? Are you that person? Or second, are you the person who's experiencing in the dream, the person in the dream? Are
Right,
you that person? Or third, are you the person who's looking at both of these things? Okay, that the person looking at the dream. Are you the person dreaming? And the answer is you are neither, you are the fourth. Okay, that's the
right,
answer. So the answer is
right.
that
Okay, interesting.
you you are Turiya is what it says, which is basically the fourth one, right? And the fourth one is essentially the same as Ekam, because the moment you realize the fourth one, Ekam has been achieved or Advaita has been achieved. You
Hmm.
realize that you're no different from Ekam, right? So that is the limitation of our interpretation. We have not tried to interpret God or anything like that way, but we're trying to interpret these questions that we all fundamentally ask ourselves at some point in time, right?
Right, right. So
and
I
and
mean,
well,
it is very. Mm,
like
you want to go ahead? Yeah,
yeah.
go.
So one thing was very very it hit a personal note was in Delusion, right? So the kids are being asked to speak in English, right? So that used to be a very big thing in our schools as well. So we used to
Yeah.
have posters,
I
speak in English, etc.,
They have
etc.
all been punished for speaking in Kannada in school.
Yes.
I hope none of my school teachers or my school is watching this because,
But that is sad, right? So we
but
keep speaking
that
like
is.
in
I
our
mean, that's the biggest grouse I have against our education system right now. Okay, and I
same.
brought this up with my faculty also when I meet them now. That I, unfortunately, and I'm ashamed to say this, that I'm more comfortable in Hindi of all languages than Kannada. Because I studied in a CBSE school where we studied Hindi from class 1, but Kannada I think started only in class 5, 6, and when it started, it was E, as basic as that. Okay, and English comes naturally to me, Hindi comes naturally to me, but not Kannada. Okay, and that I think is very sad. And that, I mean, when you kill a language, no, in the language that you speak at home or the language that you're supposed to think in, I think you are deprived of so much, so
So
much. I
much
mean, it's
joy.
beyond
Yeah,
everything. I'm deprived of
exactly.
so much joy. One, so much stories, so much literature, so much
Culture, your
of
culture.
yourself also, so much
Yeah.
culture, everything. And it's not being very sentimental about language at all. I'm not that guy at all. But still, now is when I actually regret not going to a Kannada medium school. Because I feel now when I want to read the Kannada literature, and which is so rich. I mean, Kannada has the highest Jnanpith awards in India. In literature, I think Kannada is way ahead of the other states. But I cannot consume a lot of it.
Hmm.
I can, but I'll take 1 year to read this smaller book because I'm also struggling, and that's so sad. And
That's
that's the story of my generation, actually.
So it's the same with us also, right? So we speak about a
Yeah,
lot in our this thing that Telugu as a language is so so both of us actually do podcasts in Telugu, but uh, unintendedly uh, English comes up. So whenever we are trying to
correct.
explain something complex, because we consume
Yeah,
that in either a Hindi or English, so it is either by a book or a podcast or whatever. So that language seeps inside, so whenever we are trying to translate it using our own words, uh, English comes up instead of Telugu, right? And as you
correct,
said,
correct.
Telugu is also has a very vast literary background, but
Yeah, yeah. I think same with Tamil, same with the South Indian languages. No, I
yeah,
think especially Telugu, Tamil, and Kannada
yeah,
and Malayalam. These four have a lot of literature
correct, true.
background.
But so I am not able to read even 1950s 40s literature, forget about 1800s 1700s. So
Yeah,
so and my mother keeps telling, who are you to give, who are you to talk about cinema, you can't even understand basic Telugu. My mother keeps telling me, first learn Telugu. So
yeah,
I'll tell my mother that. So at some point my mother comes from a Telugu medium background, so she had that insecurity about English. So at some point,
yeah,
like we were in fifth, sixth, she used to insist us to speak in English in house also. But then my father was
yeah.
like,
Right.
"Don't talk rubbish. He'll learn English and all." Uh, but
Yeah,
so then I'll just give her back saying that no, you were the one who told us to talk in English, and so that's why we became this.
yeah,
But
yeah, yeah,
both of us share that agony that we are not able to. We are killing culture basically
yeah.
by killing Telugu.
I
So
think
many
that's
stories.
that's our generation's story also. I think. I mean, across
Yeah,
of this, wanting to get ahead in this race,
yeah,
and that is Guru's story also. So it's kind kind
yeah,
of
yeah.
where you're trying to be somebody else.
Yeah, I think we are more or less we are. I mean, I don't know if I should call this, but we are wannabe Englishmen, right? That is
Yeah,
what we have
yeah,
been told to become uh,
yeah.
until we
We look
realize.
for that validation, no?
Yeah,
Yeah, we always look for that validation.
yeah,
like I'll give you an example, right? When we made our series, or when we were planning to make our series, the advice was absolutely against multiple languages, right? We were told not to use multiple languages, but the reality is Karavali speaks all of these languages and more. In fact, we haven't covered Konkani, we haven't covered
Barry,
Peri, you know. So
so you have covered
right
Tulu?
now we have,
we
yeah,
have covered. Void is in
so
Telugu.
void is in
Void is
Tulu.
Tulu.
Okay, okay, okay.
So we have Kundapur Kannada, we have Udupi Kannada, we have Tulu, and we have one episode in Malayalam, right? But that's the thing. If we had approached an OTT to make this with alongside them, I think that would have been a major concern. Even outside it, we were given so much advice: don't do it, don't do it. You know. So unfortunately, that's where we are. But to represent a place, how do you do it? Like even Bangalore, where I live, speaks so many languages.
Hmm.
So how do you represent Bangalore in one language? Will it really be true representation from that point of view? I don't think so. Right? And the struggle that you guys are talking about, I think you guys are the lucky ones,
Yeah,
because I am a Malayali born and brought up in Bangalore. Okay,
Oh,
who speak, yeah. So I
okay,
don't
okay,
know how
okay.
to read and write any of our regional languages solid, but I can speak 5, 6 languages. I can speak 5 languages, I can understand the sixth language, but my capacity to read and write is so limited,
Yeah, yeah.
that I, and the thing is, now because I can understand, because I spent the 2 years in Udupi developing the show alongside Sumat and everyone else, the depth in the language that you get, when they speak, and when we had to write English subtitles, it was horrendous for us because that depth does not come through at all.
Yeah, like say for example, just to give you context, in tradition, uh, in the opening stretch where they're talking about, so who was it today,
Hmm.
as if there is a death happening every other day, and the other person says Shashi, and then he says, oh him. There is a word that the other person speaks, saying, "Are auna, yali kadri." Yali kadri is
Right, right,
kadri
right,
is
right, right.
paddy. Paddy is what do you call that, bhai? Uh,
Paddy crop.
yeah, yeah,
Crop, the crop paddy.
paddy crop, but that is very raw. I mean, it's yet to bloom fully.
Okay.
The paddy crop that's
Okay,
still very raw, still very green, but it's not ripe.
indicating
You
as
know,
he's young. He's
yeah,
young, so
he's
he's
very young.
fast.
Yeah,
Okay, okay,
but
okay, okay.
what a beautiful way to put it.
Correct.
Yalikad, rather than say he's so young,
Yeah,
but
that's
you're saying
our that's our subtitle. Our
yeah, our
subtitle becomes
subtitle,
he is so young.
he's so
Wow.
young. But see the beauty in the language. Just that phrase saying "yeli kadr." Imagine him to be a very unripe paddy
Right.
offspring. So we are devoid of all that this thing, and I think we have ourselves to blame,
Hmm.
because for that again I had to reach out to this author from our region called Vaidehi ma'am, who helped us with the dialogues for that film, because I didn't have it in me. I have no such depth to come up with things like that. So that
Right.
is unfortunate. That is what I'm saying. Because spoken we can get through. I mean, I'm pretty sure you speak great Telugu. I can speak good Kannada. But when it comes to reading, writing, or just the depth of the understanding of language or literature, we are hopeless.
Yes, I at least for with respect to me and Prithvi, I can I can agree. Uh,
Yeah, it's very unfortunate that way because yeah, I mean like similar thoughts. So nothing nothing much to add to
Yeah.
the sad discourse around that because uh, yeah, we've been talking about this with a lot of other people as well, like who have been on our show, and especially when we're talking about Telugu songs and Telugu, we try to piece uh, Telugu literature, Telugu Sahityam, we call in Telugu. So the lyrics. So with people like that, people are involved, who are literally involved in that field. Even they sadly resonate similar feelings, similar opinions on this topic, and I don't know where it's going to go.
Yeah.
Uh, Especially coupled with the modernity thing that we were talking about.
and
So
and
when you're
and
in that rat
internet
race
and
and all,
social media,
So,
which is like a big
yeah.
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 So which is like which imposes of course it like you can choose the language in which you want to consume it, but still it anyway end of the day imposes the only soul English on you
Yeah.
to you know to communicate or whatever. But yeah, so I'll just steer this conversation towards identity. Or shall we finish up tradition, because we were talking about
I think
tradition also.
identity we spoke already, if I'm not wrong.
Sorry, legacy, I'm sorry, yeah.
Yes.
So legacy because uh, there is this one more grouse of ours, me and Sandy share this, about identity crisis per se, but these fan clubs, right? Fan clubs, people bashing up each other in the name of fan club because mostly it is young blood, youngsters, teenagers, young adults who are very hugely active on social media, and they subscribe to some sort of fan club or fan movement, or like the superstar or whatever, and that becomes their identity. When you of course they are anonymous people, they don't have the guts to put up their real faces as their DPs. They don't have the guts to put up real names as their DPs, as their handles, because whatever reasons, because sometimes if they speak some ill, the state is going to come after them and they are going to be behind bars, whatever that reason aside. The if you look at these people, they literally put up the names of their stars, and they say, okay, I am falana falana ka fan hu main. That is my identity. The bio literally reads, okay, don't take bio too much too seriously can be a counter argument to this. Okay, I understand, but what is compelling you to put up so much effort and put up this thing in your bio saying that you are so and so person's fan, and how is that defining you? Who are you? And like, so are you even thinking in an individualistic manner, or are you thinking in a group? So the reason the constant effort to make yourself home and try to put yourself in a group. So if you have to conform, you end up conforming to a group. Okay, this is this person's fan, they are this huge fan base, and they have these perks, so I like this, I would go into this, so I'll transform myself into this particular fan group. So this is applied to fan, not only to fan group, obviously to caste as well. And especially in our modern day and age, if you have caste, it gives you access to places where you would not have gotten access to had you been of different caste or whatever, in many places. So this has been like a huge grouse on which we have been speaking a lot, like in whatever episodes we do and whatever films we discuss, or with whoever guests we have. If there is an opportunity, we try to discuss this. But unfortunately, the discourse is not seeming to even care. Of course,
Hmm.
not that we get a lot of views and all, but at least like we try to see, like, make a point. Okay, this is there, maybe give it a thought, maybe try to give it a thought. And this was beautifully made into a short, like, it's hardly 20 minutes, 20 to 22 minutes, the length of Legacy. The title and the story that it represents was very beautifully done. When I was watching it for the first time, all these thoughts were running in my mind. Okay, this is beautiful, this is like very great way to see. Okay, never meet your idols, or probably
Hmm.
familiarity breeds contempt. Please be careful. Okay, you find an identity in yourself, not in another person who you may think and watch it on the screen and see is great.
So there is this Telugu lyric writer called Sirvanala Sitaram Shastri. So today is Guru Purnima, and like we both of us are
Yeah,
really fond. So both of us actually treat him like a guru only. So that is how much he taught us. So he tells, actually, he tells in one of his interviews saying that I am a silence of your echo. So there is nothing that I am writing. Whatever I am writing is just your
and
thoughts.
I'm an echo of your
Sorry,
silence.
I'm an echo of
Mm.
your silence, is what he says, right? And that thought is so strong because, let's say you read an autobiography of your idol, most of your so-called, you keep him on a pedestal, but all of them will be shattered, or most of them. And if you meet him or if you stay with him for a day, I am sure whatever your assumptions are, is at least some of them will break, right? uh, but
Yeah.
the most interesting part is the ending, where ending is, I am terrified of that ending, where once he
It's,
gets to know about how, that he identifies, let's say he identifies that, even that is not confirmed in the shot, but let's say he identifies her, um, and how he behaves afterwards towards her, like, because it comes naturally to him, that okay, she can be taken as granted, right? The circumstances don't matter because she's still the same girl in his head. His master or his boss did it, he can also do it. And that is a dangerous idea, given how crazy people are. People are beating up whatever, and I'm sure if people follow Kannada news, it, it, it is crazy
Yeah.
whatever has happened. I won't take any names,
Yeah.
but it is crazy whatever has happened. uh, and
Yeah.
that, to that extent, if people are going, then something is fundamentally wrong in our society, and that is where Ekam comes in and tells you, think for yourself, and that is, I mean, having consciousness fundamentally should start from thinking for yourself, right? It can be anything, but all of us are in that delusion that okay, we are thinking for ourselves, but actually we are not. We are conforming to identities that have been imposed on us. And I don't know how this distinction should be made in an individual's brain. I think education should do that, but it is not doing that, which is again a different topic or a tangent that we can talk upon. But yeah, I think how Legacy ends is something devastating. Like, it is so it is so heartbreaking to see that woman terrified to go to
yeah,
that first floor and clean that room. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it's it's just an achievement for that person, right? So because whoever he's
Yeah,
revering.
I mean, that's him trying to be his idol. That's his moment to have a piece of his have a piece of his idol, because in this woman he sees something that his idol has had and he wants a piece of it,
Hmm.
and thus become the idol himself, kind
Hmm.
of. So
Right.
it's your this thing being pushed way too far of,
Hmm.
where you want to be one person, you want to be like one person, to you want to be that person, you
Hmm.
know. That distinction is gone.
Hmm. Hmm.
He
Hmm.
sees that he can actually be the person that his idol was, and he decides to be that person as opposed
And
to always wanting to be like him.
hmm. And like
Right.
individual morality is dead right there. Like
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah. And
Because I think then, uh, because then it will become a very tricky conversation otherwise. And this thing, I know this, I think it was also triggered from an actual news bite that was I was watching way back in 2005, I think, of a
okay.
very very famous Indian actor publishing his autobiography, where he talks about the sexual escapades of his teenage
Okay.
thing,
Okay.
Okay.
where he had sex with his maid or something. And the news played it out for the next 2 3 days. And every time I was changing the channel, that came up. And I, at that point, thought, what if the maid was alive? Nobody cares. Nobody cares what
Hmm.
she's going through, because the actor is definitely going to act in 100 more films.
Hmm.
He's going to move on. He's going to be celebrated, everything. But one life or a couple of families at least have devastated somewhere else,
Hmm. Hmm.
somewhere
Hmm.
in the far corners of the state. So that kept haunting me. So that was the starting point for legacy also.
Hmm. 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 Interesting.
Of,
Right.
yeah,
And also, I think, see, we come from such an interesting culture. I think it is only in India that stardom means this.
Yep.
yeah,
Yep.
I don't think outside you have this sort of following where you're almost like a demigod.
yeah.
So when I was in film school, I got the chance to shoot a documentary alongside Udit, who shot Void and
Hmm.
Masquerade with
Masquerade.
Suman. Uh, Both of us were part of a documentary called For the Love of a Man. Okay, and it essentially was documenting the fandom of Rajnikant. Okay, and the stories we came up, we didn't shoot Rajnikant himself. We just shot all these fans and followed those stories. And you won't believe the extent to which people were going and the kind of thing. Some positive, some scary, some you know outright fantasy. I can give you a small snippet. Basically, this is the outlier fantasy. Okay, the rest of it, I'm sure you can find similarities. But there was a man in Japan, okay, who believed that the world is going to end in 2000. Okay, in the year 2000, according to some famous guy's prophecy. So what he
Okay.
did is he spent all his money, maxed out his credit cards, and was ready for the world to end tomorrow. Okay, and the world didn't end, and he was super broke, and he went into depression. Okay, he was like, shit, what do I do now? So he just didn't know what to do, and after like 15 days or something, his one of his friend came and pulled him out, saying, "Hey, no, you have to get out of the house. Come, there's this one Indian film that's come out. Let's go watch." And he came and pulled him to a theater, and it was Rajini's one film. I don't remember exactly which film. And he sees this film, and this man feels like he's looking at the eyes of a god. Okay, that this person is talking to me. Okay, and this person is going to give me the answer. He watches the next 15 days or something that he watched every show every day for the next 15 days, and he decides that Rajini is going to be the answer to his life. Okay, so he borrows money, saves us money, and takes a flight from Japan to Chennai to decide to meet Rajini, because he is like, this man is my answer. He is going to tell me how to live life. So he comes outside Rajini's house, and every day he's standing there waiting to meet Rajini. Obviously, nothing is happening. Spent all his money, unable to meet Rajini. Nobody's letting him. And finally, he decides that, okay, this is, I have failed, and he decides to go to an get drunk. But in Chennai, you could only drink in five-star hotels. There's no bars. You have to, you can't buy liquor like this. So he went to a five-star hotel, and he's having drinks, and he's wearing a sherwani, because every day he wears a sherwani to go meet Rajni. So
Okay.
there's this Japanese guy wearing a sherwani, drunk, pissed drunk, crying in the bar counter. So the bartender comes to him and he tries talking to him, saying what happened, what happened. And this guy tells him that this is my story. I came here to meet Rajni, and now I have run out of money and I have to go back home. And the bartender says Rajni is sitting in that cafe. Okay, so this guy, Sherwani, drunk, goes to that cafe and falls on Rajni's feet, and Rajni gives him a hug and he comes back. Okay, and this whole story he's narrating to my For the Love of Command director, Rinku Kalsi, and she's like, okay, so what was the revelation? What did you learn? So he's like, you're sitting in a bar. This is my bar. So I that was the realization that he met Rajni in a bar. He came back and started a bar. And now he's extremely successful in life. Sorry, a long story, but I'm just telling you the extent of it,
Right.
Yeah.
crazy story. So, but and so even that line feels like a Rajni line, right? The bar you're sitting is my bar. So, uh, going back to legacy and what Sandy was saying, so the ending as well, right? And ending and you deliberately include a kid who is trying to mimic this person, the
Yeah, yeah,
middle
yeah,
aged
yeah,
25-year old guy, and
yeah,
also a very older person
yeah,
who is apparently blind.
yeah,
I don't think,
yeah,
yeah. So he's just listening to radio, but also he's very perverted. So, and this is represented in the initial opening di- sketch as well, right?
yeah.
So there is this woman trying to I think
Dry the
she's
clothes.
trying clothes, and then these three people are looking at her, and each of them is interpreting in her in different
Different
way.
way. Yeah, yeah,
But there is perversion everywhere, and with the end where the legacy goes, the precedent is very dangerous, right? It's
yeah,
a
yeah,
dangerous
yeah,
precedent that is being hinted at.
yeah, yeah.
uh, the kid is just looking up and he's wondering what might have happened there, but it feels
Yeah,
very
because I think
dreading.
that was what uh, that is the only thing that can disturb you. A kid, the thought of, or rather, seeing a kid see what you're seeing. That is the only thing that can disturb you, and that is the only way where a cycle can stop.
Yes,
Where
yes,
this
yes. It
entire
has to stop that.
cycle of
Yes.
what has been happening through the grandfather, who is metaphorically also blind, but you know being seeing things happen and not doing anything, to this boy's father, maybe there is a hint in the plantation where saying, yeah, even your father liked
Hmm.
Gauri or something. So there is a
Oh,
cycle, there's very clearly a cycle that is at play, and this boy is next in line. So do you stop it, do you not, or something? So that was also why a boy was
right,
brought
right,
in.
right,
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 right.
right, 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 right. Interesting. Yeah. And so this, I mean, mild spoiler, I guess. But anyway, so this child looking up and then the getting to stop reminded me of that ending of Garuda Gamana Vishavana,
Hmm.
of a similar idea that they try to play out of whatever
Right,
happens at the end,
right,
and the kids are doing that. So it's very
right.
dangerous. It's a dangerous precedent, that a vicious cycle that goes on in
Yeah,
violence,
yeah,
but
yeah.
here it is
The film
perversion
also
and
opens with the boy looking up to this man playing out, doling out
yeah, yeah,
dialogues
yeah,
from
yeah,
his
yeah,
idol. So it's a
yeah.
cycle that, even within the film, it's kind of a cycle.
Hmm.
Even in the larger context, it's a cycle.
No, I think, see, we are we are having this discussion in the context of fandom and stars and all that, and how problematic that is. But I don't think you need to go that far. Even
Yeah,
if you go inside your own houses,
Correct.
like for example, you will see a mother tell the sister, that you can't go out after 6.
Hmm. Hmm.
You can't wear that and go out. When the brother's watching, you could be of the same age. The brother's allowed to go out after 6 and play for another 2 hours. The girl's not allowed to wear a certain thing and go. And you might not be intending anything wrong, but what are you telling the boy? That the girl who's out after 6 is not a good girl, right?
Mm.
So it starts there. So that's what I see. There's this fascinating idea that this person called Maitreya, if I'm not wrong, Kani Kustruti's father, talks about in an interview, where he says that this idea of society going through all this and all these conversations about society. Where is society? If society exists outside everybody's door, then where is society?
Yeah. True.
Right.
right?
True.
It is here. It is right inside your door. So I think we need to look at it with that lens. Like,
Correct,
yes,
correct.
at a macro level, these things are becoming problematic. But I think they need, see, we are comfortable having this conversation on a podcast because four of us feel like we can fight, right? But the truth happens when you can have this conversation with your father,
Hmm.
with your
True.
granddad, with
True.
your Keshav mama at home, whoever that is.
S-
So,
True. I mean, I think there that huge problem of misogyny that, of course, we keep seeing in films. We find it at randomly pick any film and we see that misogyny and that kind of sexism that is casually thrown around, and the society is okay with seeing that on a film because they take that as entertainment. Film ko film ki tarah dekhna hai, but when it comes to their home, when you cross that door and get inside, and if you try to do that, all hell breaks loose.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And that distinction where the parents and mother, father, grandfather, everyone are able to protect their own females in their house, but they are okay with whatever random make like nonsense jokes that that they see in film or in a TV or in a random YouTube sketch or in a short that they see and forget in the next 30 seconds is fine. So that I don't understand, and I think so shows like these at least try to invoke a thought, of course, because I don't think our older generations would watch shows like these, but it's the kid from legacy that has to watch this and try, okay, this is where I have to stop. He has to at least think that. So maybe it Ekam helps in that way. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we have two left. Uh,
I think
One is
think
Masquerade
that
and
tradition and
Tradition.
masquerade.
Yeah, I think we'll talk about Masquerade.
Yeah.
Again, very interesting story in the sense that it speaks about the need of the hour, that is employment in this country, which is like which is going haywire, and lot on lot of young, if at least young men, if they're not having things to do, we'll see violence on the streets because they have a lot of energy and they don't know what to do. So it speaks about uh, unemployment, but not just about unemployment as well. It also speaks about how politics affects you, and how each one, even though if he's your friend, uh, try like
Seems to be your friend.
yeah, at some point everyone is selfish, right? And he gets kick out of saying that I'm helping you, I'm giving you a life, but actually everyone, right, everyone in that food chain except I think his name is Kushi, if I'm not wrong.
Dhanraja.
Dhanraj, sorry. Yeah, Kushi is
Yeah.
from some other film.
Kushi is from Delusion.
Yeah. So except him, who is like who has given up on his life, in the sense that in the sense that he believes other people more than he believes his abilities to make money. So he believes his friend, he believes that the neighbor who goes and buys him cow without doing any background research or whatsoever, even though he has phone, etc., etc. So he believes in others more than himself because he wants a easy way out rather than him getting to work, etc., etc. And we keep hearing that they are not paying in Dubai, that is why he comes home, but we do not know actually what happened there, right? Maybe he was not working enough or not working good, and that is why he was sent home. So Masquerade touches upon all of these, and the idea is the ending is brilliant, right? In a very like it is tragic comedy, right? In front of a house you have a hole dug up, and there the cow is standing and it is shitting. So whatever decisions you have taken to fix your life ended up you there, basically you sitting in a hole and the entire thing shitting on you. So I think the ending was quite good, and you see Dhanraj also visibly frustrated, right? Like he's not happy with whatever is happening. He's trying to make he's very hopeful that it does good to him, but it does not, because he's not acting, he's just and I think the entire sequence, right, the entire essence of Dhanraj's character is in that scene where except him, everyone else opines on where the well should be dug up in his house, right? I think that is
Yeah,
the
yeah,
essence of the entire shot, where he's just standing,
yeah,
but he doesn't decide for himself. Everyone else is
yeah.
deciding, and it is so chaotic, but he still goes with the decision based on whatever superstition, the coconut roaming, or his mother calling, or believing in astrology. But he doesn't act on anything, or him finding his watch because he's trying to because he goes and asks his
Offers
god. Yeah.
Vida. Yeah,
So
Yeah.
everything else is not his actions, but other people's actions. So I think that way it is very interesting. So it also tells people to work hard, first work hard, and then you can talk about free will, etc., etc. But instead of working hard, if you if you do that, then you'll be dug up in a hole. You'll eventually end up in a hole, life shitting on you.
literally. Yeah,
Yeah.
the only, I mean, I do agree that everyone has a mask on, and everyone's kind of uh, playing to their own benefits. And so is Dhanraja.
Correct.
Like, say, I'm just slightly countering when you said except for Dhanraja. I think Dhanraja is also playing the game, just that he's too dumb to the game. He doesn't have the skill set for this game. But he's also trying a
Correct. Correct. I agree. I agree.
shortcut where, his life could be done and all that. So he's also a part of this larger scheme, and he's also trying to make a quick buck.
Correct. Correct.
Just that he's too dumb for the game.
Correct.
Right. Uh, so going back to our guru Sirvena Sitaram Sastri, there is this one line from his song, a very famous song. So it goes like this: రకరకాల ముసుగులు వేస్తూ మరిచాం ఎప్పుడో సొంత ముఖం. So
Hmm.
ki- people keep wearing so many
Yeah.
masks for so many different situations. They end up not recognizing what their real face
What the
ever
real face
was.
is. Yeah.
So it's very unfortunate, and you take that and make it a satirical comedy in masquerade. So that's quite interesting, and quite interesting, and of course very entertaining, because especially there's Raj B Shetty there doing his casually acting like,
He's
like
just
that.
effortless, isn't he?
I
Yeah.
mean, absolutely,
But
absolutely.
I
You
mean,
really feel that he had just returned from Dubai, but yeah, gone.
I mean, I don't know how effortless he does, because I was looking at some interviews of him for Garuda Gamana, and when he used to direct, also he used to be very angry. It seems. So I don't know how he takes a character, but I don't know what your experience was here, but
No, he
yeah,
was an absolute joy on set. Absolute joy on set. Because you should see the BTS footage. He's just dancing
Yeah.
around with everybody. And the shoot, if you've been to a shoot, it's chaotic. There are tempers flying. There are things not working out. Everybody's shouting. But then you see Raj is dancing with the team, and he's having a ball. And so suddenly you also split up. You also start laughing, and you calm things down. You have such a calming influence on set. I mean, Garuda Gamana, I think it was a different process. He had to internalize to be that person,
correct.
which he's not otherwise. So maybe that took a toll on him. But
Mhm.
otherwise, on our set, he was such a joy, and you know,
Right.
Absolutely,
yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah,
Right.
I've seen
I
so
mean,
many videos of Raj dancing to that Mangalorean tiger dance online.
yeah. That's till I mean, it was first Rakshit after Ulidaru Kandante, and after Garuda Gamana, Rakshit was said, thank God Raj did Garuda Gamana because now he can do the tiger dance and run. So till we have the next star from Karavali doing the tiger dance, I think Raj will have to keep doing the
Yeah.
dance.
Yeah.
yeah, such a joy to watch him,
Yeah,
perform, and so I was just all through this our conversation, I was just thinking, because uh, there had to be some level of marination between you and between both of you, Sumant and Sandeep, in your heads, and also together on the idea of Ekam and the stories of Ekam. And there had to be, like, the marination had to have gone for a lot of time, right? Because I'm just trying to imagine the question in this way, where the in the prologue, there are threads of glow that go into and come out, and so there are threads, right, in each glow. So I am trying to think of each thread as a person who has been brought onto this platform and trying to execute this thing called Ekam. So So how has it been? Because I mean, it is very hard to, convince another person to like something, right? Or say that this is my idea, man. This is how I'm thinking about this particular thing in my head. Are you thinking in the same way, or how do you think, or how do we amalgamate, or like bounce off ideas from each other and amalgamate and come to a middle ground? So it is hard even to decide which restaurant to go to in the next weekend. But when how does it happen when you're doing this on a huge scale? There are like, a lot of people involved, but there are like so many stories, and the as showrunners and as directors, how do you bifurcate that, and how had this happened?
So the thing is, see, once Sumant and I got the green light to produce Ekam and we decided to go on the floor, we decided to get the entire crew involved in Ekam, including the editors, the sound engineers, the DPs, everyone. It didn't matter when your work actually starts. We wanted everyone to be part of the pre-prod, so all of them were brought down to Manipal 3 months before shoot. Okay, because a lot of the people who are in the crew are from at least 4 or 5 different states and not actually from Karnataka. A lot of them, right?
Right,
So a
right.
lot of people from like Delhi, Andhra, Himachal, Kerala, Tamil Nadu, everywhere. So the idea was that we believe in their skill set as directors, as DPs, as sound engineers. But right now you cannot interpret a place unless you have immersed yourself in it, right? And that needs time.
Mm.
So this 3 months had, two objectives. One, that we were sharing the film with all of them, because of course, Sumant and I were supposed to serve as, some sort of guide to navigate this journey. But at the same time, ultimately, when you're directing a film, you're directing a film. When you're shooting a film, you're shooting a film. So your interpretations have to come through, and we are bringing you on board for that interpretation, right? So that can only happen if you share the film entire. So which is why, even though the edit starts only much later, the editor was not got on board for the first 3 months, because we wanted to share the film with him from the paper itself. You know, so the way we went about that is, there is only one truth: the film is above everyone else, right? So
Right,
then it
right.
doesn't matter whether you're the showrunner, you're the DP, you're the editor. As long as you're having a conversation that helps making the film better, then it's open conversation, right? And there's always discourse, right? As long as we are aligned with the common goal, like the four of us in this conversation,
Right.
you can have a discourse and agree and disagree and figure out what to do. So it's a bit of all of this process. And again, we were blessed to have a bunch of talented people to come on board and help us make this reality. So it's the effort of a lot of people and a lot of uh, uh, you know I think your film only gets better if almost everyone on your crew is way better than you at what they do. You know,
Right, right.
if you as a
Right.
director or as a showrunner limit the interpretation of every department to your
Hmm.
capacity of that department, it
Right,
shows.
right, 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 right,
You
right,
know,
right. So
there's
yeah,
no way we could have interpreted sound design the way it has been.
I think sound
Like
design has
people like
been
Shreya,
excellent.
Vivek,
Like
Anand.
sound design,
Yeah,
exceptional. Yeah,
especially in
yeah,
Void.
yeah, yeah.
Void, I thought of it telling then only, but then we deviated. But in Void, I think it was exceptional to
yeah,
what you have done there. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, so
Yeah,
Shreyang comes on board and interprets it his own way. He kind of takes it to another level altogether. So I think, like Sandeep said, no, that was a joy of collaboration also, and that's the purpose of films also.
Hmm.
Because if you set out to make a film and if it just ends up being your film, then you might as well just write a story.
correct.
So, but here everyone, Udit brings his own aesthetics, and Udit says, "Okay, let's do it aisa karte," and then some things you agree, some things you don't, but you are always working towards a larger good and what's going to work to the film, and you are always open to that. Just going back to across many of these films, like say Raj brought in so much to Dhanraja's character. He's like during shoot, while shoot, he's like, "Can we do this?" And then our entire approach for the film changes because of that one suggestion. And then there is something that Basuma sir would say about a character like Gurua that he has seen, or rather, he has actually lived Gurua's life through his father and all that. So that changes. So the film is constantly evolving, and there is Ankur, who has nothing to do with my film Void at that point, but he gives me a suggestion, and then that changes the entire outlook of, okay, how is he going to carry the gun. So I don't
Right.
know where we draw a line, because there's inputs and feedback from everyone that has helped, even during the writing process, during shoot, even during edit, and during sound design. This film has constantly evolved.
Mm.
And in the early stages, I think between Sandeep and I, it was just, I think, trusting the other person. And there were moments where I wouldn't completely bind to what he's saying, but I trust him. I'd say, "Thik, I'll go with what you're saying," and then let it marinate. And the next day, maybe we'll debate it out, and vice versa. So I think
Right.
that at least initially was the approach, because both of us were not sure with what we're doing.
Yeah.
Somewhere we kept fooling ourselves, saying, ये तो यार, ये भाई, इसके तो bias तो line में खड़े होंगे, kind of thing. But with every idea, it was that, even if you're not in complete agreement, it is trusting the other person more than yourself, at least for that moment, so that the conversation goes forward.
Right.
Right.
I think
Yeah,
it is.
see, another.
I think the
Yeah, go on,
collaborations
please.
in itself will be a very humbling process for a human being, is what I would say. Right.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Because the line blurs there, no? Like, I've had this constant throughout, that I think a director's job is overrated, quite honestly, because there is so much. I mean, if you're open to it, there is so much coming into the film from all directions, that it's truly a collaborative thing. And the film changes, and the film transforms and grows outside of what it is on paper, if you're open to it. And in Ekam, I think, is the epitome of that. I think every single person has so contributed so much. They've owned it up. They might be only credited for one thing or the other thing, unfortunately, but it's immense here. I mean, it's been very humbling that way.
Right. Yeah.
And
To
the
be.
other thing,
Yeah, please go on.
sorry,
No,
the
go on. Go on.
other lens is that, we spent 3 months in pre-production, yes, because we wanted to be as prepared and everything. But all that preparation is really like learning how to drive a car. You've just done all those tests of changing the gears, and saying, I know first gear, I know second gear, I know. But when you ultimately drive, you can't be thinking about the gears.
Hmm.
If something comes in front of you, which it always does, in ways that you're not prepared for,
Yeah,
someone will
like-
you will have to take that turn, you will have to do something, right? And that's where that's what I keep telling Suman, that we made these 7 films, and we will continue to make films, but sometimes there'll be a moment where you suddenly, for that 1 minute in your film, either when you're watching it or making it, you experience cinema, where cinema, you just got to taste a version of your own cinema,
Hmm.
and that can happen. I don't know if it's ever planned. I don't know if you can ever design it. You can only be prepared. So really, I think pre-production is really preparation. It's not it cannot go beyond that.
Yeah,
You're
it's
only
not
preparing
foolproof.
in any way. I think you're just molding yourself to receive it. To receive things in the right way, to be able to be receptive to everything that you can.
Right.
And that's the magic. That's the magic.
To
Because-
anticipate that you
Yeah,
anticipate it,
yeah.
but again,
No,
still
you can't even anticipate. I think one of our directors, Swaroop, I think, in the documentary, says a beautiful thing about the entire pre-production
Mhm.
ending up being your impulse and instinct during shoot, because that is all that you can do.
Yeah.
There will be 100 things that will go wrong, but what will become your instinct at that moment, your decision and your this thing to say, no, I'm not going to do what I planned for, but I'll do this.
Yeah.
And that's not impulsive. It's impulsive, yes, at that moment, but it's also come from hours of thinking about it and
Correct.
preparing
Right.
for something.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Taking
Where at
the-
that moment, no, this is better. Yeah.
True. Yeah.
taking the
True.
idea
I mean-
to the subconscious, basically, so that it is ingrained.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's I mean, like similar a similar analogy to driving a car is like an experienced professional playing cricket, right? Like the balls are like 180 150 kmph, but
Yeah.
I think I
they are
can.
so prepared to play that particular shot for that particular ball
Yeah.
that
I think
they
Sachin says
imbibe that
this.
shot in them.
So Sachin, what he used to say, for every ball that Shoaib Akhtar bowled, I had 2 to 3 shots that I had in my mind. So I
Correct.
used to play the most instinctive
I-
shot I get, because obviously he was gifted and all, but also he worked his worked a lot in his nets to have 2 to 3 shots for each ball the other bowler ball, right? And that is why he's
Yeah,
greatest
yeah,
of all time right now. So I think we
yeah.
have to train our muscle in such a way that we'll be receptive, whatever you said, right? We'll be ready
yeah,
to take in whatever we and give out the
At
best.
that moment, you are still hoping
Correct.
that you better be right
Yeah.
Yeah.
with what you've decided.
Yeah.
There are times when you're wrong and then you kind of fix it on the edit,
Yeah.
but there are going to be moments, but you have to hope that collectively there are more moments where you've gotten it right
Correct.
than you've gotten it wrong.
Correct. Yeah.
You know, directing or being a showrunner is such a funny balance of the highest level of insecurity and the highest level of confidence at the same time. At the exact same time. You know, you're living both at the same time.
Right.
yeah. I mean, to quote Hemant Emrao, who was very kind and generous to be on our show 2 times. So
Oh,
he says in one of his interviews, cinema is an amalgamation of everybody's collective brilliance as well as everybody's incompetence as well. As long as you maintain the brilliance above the incompetence, that should be good.
absolutely. Yeah, yeah,
Alright, brilliant.
absolutely.
That's too good. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, I think
I think we'll just talk
I
about
think tradition
tradition.
is only left. Yeah.
Uh,
Uh,
so I
yeah.
think I was
Yeah.
reading about what traditions are, and so what he says is traditions are uh, traditions are rituals that found place through time. So these are also hit and misses. Let's say like let's say I'm a batsman and I bow to my bat every time I start, and seeing me another junior batsman also does that. So it has been through that. So that is why these actually exist. But after a point, these traditions lose their significance of why they are actually started, right? For something like a batsman bowing down to their bat, that doesn't stop. But let's say something like a sati, which had to stop, right, in this society. So that needs to be stopped because the essence of what or however it was started, it doesn't exist today in this day and age. And the most like for me the most brutal part of tradition is the mother and the wife speaking to the guy. uh,
Shashi.
yeah,
Yeah.
Shashi.
Yeah.
So even though the mother and the guy are the most affected people because he's going to die, but they are the one who actually uphold these traditions. Women in the family, for some reason, like there have been multiple surveys where the women are more traditional, more religious, honor more about societal norms, etc., 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 right? So the women are actually the one who are way more religious than man in today's India. Right? And that is the reality, and that you actually show wherein you go and die, we'll take care of ourselves. And they both actually give him strength to go and die even though he doesn't have strength, which is the irony of all times, because they'll miss him in their day-to-day life. I think for the times that tradition was set in, it was, I think I'm assuming it to be very pre independence, etc., etc. uh, so yeah, even though multiple times the other men also say that no, this is wrong, he shouldn't die because of whatever. It is never revealed whatever he does, and it is not cheating for sure. Matlab cheating on his wife for sure. He does some other thing, and for me, from the looks of it, what I thought was it is a very small thing or a minute thing, but in that society, it is a very big thing. And apparently, his father also does the same, and that is the reason for him to kill him, for his uncle to kill him
Uncle.
right now.
Yeah.
And the meta aspect, like the very interesting aspect is how the one who sets up the fire actually tries to follow traditions and all, but at the end he breaks it because they don't have time. So the point of the entire tradition and honor falls flat because they want it to get done instead
Done.
of
Get
actually
done with.
honoring the tradition, right? So
Yeah.
the hypocrisy is shown very very subtly but very brilliantly. But I was just wondering, why was that cobra thing inserted into that entire.
Shashi Shesha. I think I was
Oh,
assuming Shashi to be. another word, another meaning for serpent, like or a snake, and it happens to enter the this thing and indicating that he's going to die in the future or whatever. So, but whatever is your interpretation?
No, the you want to go somewhere?
No, go ahead.
No, the co. You guys are something else. I have to tell you.
So we are delusional now.
Whatever you guys are drinking, no, you need to send me a cup of that. Anyway.
It's this.
Anyway, so the cobra was a play with traditional beliefs again. Basically, you can't burn a snake
Oh,
in
okay.
India,
Okay. I did not know that.
right? It's that simple. Yeah,
Okay,
you
okay,
can't
okay.
burn a snake.
So,
So
okay.
a snake entering it means it's almost an omen telling you
Not to
maybe
do.
that
Okay.
this is not supposed to happen.
Okay, so that's why he dismantles it, and then he's very
Yeah,
furious.
and then
Right?
they
The guy
don't
was
find
doing
the
it.
snake really.
Yeah.
You know?
Okay.
Right? So it's just maybe if you really have all these beliefs, maybe that belief also is telling you, hi, that's not what it really is. Maybe you guys need to back down and think about this. But
Right.
also just to correct the interpretation a little, Sandy. So the idea of I don't know if this maybe the clearest way to show what was happening was maybe Shashi was being carried as a body. By when they started walking, maybe he's a body and the body wakes up and the film starts.
Right.
So it's not like he's being killed because of something. He's dead. He's supposed to be a dead man, and they
Yeah, he's
realize he's
supposed to be
not
dead
dead.
man. Yeah.
Right? And they realize he's not dead, and that's where the film. So the literal.
As absurd as it sounds, but that is what it is.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
It's
Now
literally a dead man walking.
Right. I see what you guys are going for. Yeah.
He's supposed to be dead actually. Okay.
Mhm.
So I did not know. Sandy did not get it, but
Yeah, Sumat saying he's a dead man walking is perfect because see, we could have made that. See, again, this is absolute liberties we've taken, and we're paying the price for it somewhere. we don't know where yet.
Maybe, yeah.
But actually, we should have shown a dead body being carried. Then it would have been very clear that this dead body suddenly shakes and wakes up, which actually happens. A lot of dead bodies, when you're about to bury them, they wake up, right? So if that had happened and the story begin there, and they still decide that no, now though we've announced your date,
I think that was how it was supposed to be in the earlier drafts also, but then we thought, isme maza nahi, let us amp up the absurdity. He's just walking.
Because we wanted to make it that literal. That no, you will be the guy who walks towards your death.
Yeah.
When you're that blind,
and
and you'll also
I see.
And when you're looking, if you start looking at it metaphorically, I mean, maybe this is taking the discussion a little too far, but if you start looking at the entire film metaphorically, then everything makes sense. That is what you're doing. You're walking into your deathbed in terms of the aspirations that you have for yourself or something. Like, say, I might have wanted to be a filmmaker, which I am now, but I'm talking for the larger majority. I might have wanted to be a cricket player, but I let go because my family wants me to be an engineer, or they want me to be a doctor. I might have been great at cricket. I might have been great at poetry. But you let go of those dreams for a larger good of wanting to make your family happy and wanting to do a life for yourself and all that. So if you start looking things at that context, it's no longer absurd.
Yeah, because I'm sure each one of us has died at least one or two of these deaths. Sumant and I both are engineers. And I am not even. I didn't do engineering by choice.
None of us. I think half of India has not done engineering by choice.
Yeah, so that was a death number one. I'm sure a lot of people out there die again when they profess their love for someone, and the family kills that version of you. That part of you has to be killed. It's no more real or unreal than that. It is as real as that part of you dying, because that part of you actually dies. Actually dies. So it's really that. And we played, so that's what, no, the liberty we've taken is the problem, but we're hoping that, somewhere it will get into that.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So, when
because these ideas
go on.
when they get amped up is when they become real. Like when you said Sati, you think that was like, I'm sure it was born as an idea like this, that how is it okay for a woman to live on? Maybe we should just burn her. ठीक है, कर लेते हैं.
Yeah, it was
You
a
know?
reality, back then. Not, right now,
Yeah.
if you tell it to today's generation, it is as absurd as a tradition.
Correct, correct. So that's the thing. A lot of the things that were reality or are realities to us may sound or look as absurd as this. But the only way for us to have commentary on this, like the kid looking up in Legacy and witnessing the whole thing, Shashi had to die to make this point. Shashi,
Hmm.
because we could have told
Right.
you metaphorically, but if Shashi wasn't burnt, you will not think about it. Because there was a lot of feedback initially when we had the story saying, no, you can't kill him. I'm like, no, we have to kill him.
Yeah.
Only then will you think about it. In fact, there's a whole school of thought of feedback that we're getting that, hey, you should have showed the death. You should have showed the brutality. You should have showed so that it stays and make. But yeah, we know the liberty we've taken and the cost we're paying for it. So we wanted to stop here this time. But
Right.
yeah.
Right. Yeah. I think the whole meaning or the theme of tradition that you were going for is superbly established in the opening shot of them walking into the mud, stomping into the
Absolutely.
mud. It's
Absolutely.
beautifully done. I was when I realized it, and after when I finished the whole episode, and then I had realized it, I was fan of whoever took the call, executed that. So of course, all of you, the team together, but I was floored with that.
I think Ankur and Swaroop and all these guys, Swaroop, the director, Sanal, these guys had a lot to contribute to that situation because if you notice, Keshav Mama, Prakash's character and the person behind, they are in the same rhythm and the other guy is catching up. So he's off rhythm. Even in that puddle, he's off rhythm.
Yeah,
So the moment he gets into rhythm, he's dead. Basically. And even what you brought up earlier, Sandy, the conversation of the mother and the wife herself. The wife tells him that you only have told me how many times that no matter how hard we must do the right thing. You know, these are things that we see in our own families.
Hmm.
That
mm,
you would have
right.
heard this 100 times. So it's just that given back. He would have told her in so many occasions that you might be finding this hard, but it's our right thing. We have to stand by it. Kitna bola hoga usko. So it's all of that.
Yeah, it's yeah, very very hard pill to swallow for the whole uh,
No, I'm just thinking
tradition.
how many times I died. Like till 26, I'm.
Yeah, I mean, uh, again, so going back to the rate, the hamster point that we've been making throughout. People are not even ready to sit down and think about the decision that they may have taken, or the opportunities that they may have lost because of some of the decisions being imposed upon them. So when Sandeep was saying that your that part of yourself actually dies when say a thing like engineering is imposed on you, because it is like it's 4 years, 4 years of energy, resources, and lot of opportunities, whatever opportunities that may have come your way, and you will never know going forward. And at least you maybe just in hindsight you might just think and realize, but again, nobody's ready to sit down and think for a second. Everybody's on to the next amusement that they find on their phone or on their laptop or wherever. But it is just sad.
Yeah, I think.
I think, yep,
Uh,
we have
I
exhausted
think
season one.
art is such a mirror that actually shows you like that. Oh, you might have done this. You might have done this. I think in that way, Ekam is a beautiful piece of art, wherein it brought in so many thoughts, some not very pleasant, like me dying multiple times in my entire 26 years of life. But again, all of these at the end.
We want you to rewatch Tradition today to see to see where all you have died.
But I think that is the process of life. You have to
Yeah,
go back, go forward, go back, go forward, and at some
yeah.
point we will start living in the moment, I hope. And I think that is what I think. Osho at some point says this beautifully, ki, living in that particular second, which none of us do, is what life actually is. So probably we will try to do that by living in the past and in the future. So
Yeah.
thanks Sandeep, and thanks Suman for this wonderful conversation. I hope you guys enjoyed
Thanks,
it
Sandy. And
and not exhausted.
it's been a pleasure. I mean, it's been a pleasure.
Absolutely. I didn't come in expecting this sort of a trip. I mean, this is like made my day and maybe the week. So
And I was just telling Sandeep a little earlier today that for some reason, feeling very grumpy today. I just woke up grumpy. There are these days, where you
Okay.
just
Okay.
you're not up for it. I was feeling so grumpy, but I'm so light now. So thank you guys.
Oh,
Yes,
And
yes,
it's
yes.
that's a
not,
huge
it's not
compliment.
because, it's not because you like Ekam, but it's because how this conversation flowed, and to see you make those connects and kind of, it was very fulfilling also, because some of these conversations are the conversations we have had 4 or 5 years back. To suddenly see somebody get something at that level of detailing, and
Yeah.
it's, yeah, almost brushing up the 4 or 5 years that has passed by with Ekam.
All right,
yeah,
all
yeah.
right.
Thank you.
We no way we could have pulled all this out because we've
Yeah,
been tripping for so long. Your interpretations, both of your interpretations were fantastic,
yeah.
and I'm very excited to see where you guys head and what what happens with the podcast and what happens with your content, because this is amazing, amazing.
Probably
Thank you
we'll
so much for inviting us.
probably we'll die. Both of us collectively will die another death, but that is for another day.
But thank you so much for the time and the huge compliments that you gave us.
Yes.
That's a huge boost for us too, because
No, I think we mean it very genuinely also. It's,
Absolutely, absolutely.
thank you,
Yep.
thanks a lot, and thank you for Ekam. Uh, of course, we highly looking forward to the other bubbles that came on Prologue, which probably will be season 2, season 3, and
And
of course many seasons to come.
I wish you guys make money and you guys have motivation to make other things as well. Because at the end, after all of this conversations in our head, we live in a capitalist world and we want to make money. And guys, the
Absolutely.
link is in the
you've
description.
gotten to very touchy things now.
uh, the link is in the description.
Thank you.
Will be in the
he,
description.
he, he's breaking the
Bubble.
bubble of this podcast.
या पूरा पॉडकास्ट में कि अरे क्या आर्ट बना है ये वो वैसा कुछ बनाया अरे
So guys, please go and watch Ekam, and I hope you'll also, all of you guys will find joy after watching it. Thank you guys.
Yeah,
I think
thank you,
thank you
guys,
thank
thank
you
you.
guys.
yeah.